Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for April 19th, 2007. First matter on the agenda is I'd like to take a moment of silence for all the victims at Virginia Tech. If you could join me with that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Moving along, the first matter we have on the agenda is the minutes of some previous meetings. I'll take them individually. September 7th, 2006. Any board members have any questions or concerns or corrections?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On the page 5 at the bottom, under general discussion, the first entry under my name, quite frankly, I don't remember what I said, but what's here is not accurate. It doesn't make any sense if you read it. I understand the economics of this too, but a couple of questions. Parking, I think from my standpoint, that once this development is completed, and it ends.
Okay.
And then the next one, the documentation that I have received is that at tonight's meeting, I don't recall saying anything like that, but I don't recall what I said back in September. So maybe that can be clarified somehow.
Okay. Let me see if any of the board members remember. Joe, do you recall anything exactly on that? And I'll try to reconstruct what I might remember.
Yeah, I don't recall specifically from September 7th. I think the overall thought is there, but the thought isn't completed. So perhaps if we could just isolate that as a bullet point, and we can move on, unless we want to go back to the video. But I don't think, because it's under general
it's not.
discussion and not part of
I
a
would-
vote, I don't think it's a critical portion of the minutes.
No. I do remember stating that I thought the site was a little too dense. I think we can leave it at that and strike the rest of it.
Okay.
That would be fine with me. Yeah, leave it at that.
Okay, so therefore, we will just end it after where it says, I think the site is a little too dense. We'll stop it there and delete the rest of that.
Yeah, just
Okay.
strike the rest.
Okay. I have no problem with that. Joe, you have any problem with that? I know the other board members weren't here for that meeting.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So we'll make that amendment if we have, let's see if we have any other amendments to these meetings. Anything else on that date for September 21st? Excuse me, September 7th, I'm sorry. Any questions on that one? Anything else?
Nothing else.
I have none? No. Anybody like to make a motion that we accept the September 7th minutes as amended?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. I know you gentlemen weren't present on that, so we'll just, James, the two new board members are going to abstain from voting on accepting the minutes because they weren't here for that meeting, okay? Okay, so we'll have 3 in favor to accept the minutes as amending, and 2 members abstain because they weren't on the board at that point in time. The next matter would be the minutes from the September 21st, 06. I just have one quick one, it's just a quick typo. On page 11, right down before the motion was made by Mr. Claremont, and that's myself, I agree with, it should be Joe, by mistake it says F-O-E, it says Fo instead of Joe. That's the only, I know that's a typo, but that's the only correction I have on that one.
That's a worthwhile correction, isn't it?
And what page is that we have you on this?
On the page you were referencing.
Oh, okay, I got it, all right, yep, okay, so I'll request as a board member that we make that amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the Thursday, September 21st board meeting minutes as amended.
Second?
Second, and chair votes yes, as amended, those are approved, and we'll have 3 board members in favor. Back on that point in time, Mary Burns was a board member, and our new 2 members had not been on the board yet, so therefore they're not going to vote on that matter. So that will be a vote of 3 members in favor, with 2 abstentions, as well as the previous minutes. Moving on to the October 16th, 2006. This was a meeting that Mr. Jim and Mr. Fischett, I believe they might have been their first meeting. Anybody have any questions in regards to those minutes? I remember because I knew they came on, and it was a short meeting, and that was their first, and it was a short meeting like that, yeah. So, I think they'll remember how quick that meeting was. Anybody have any questions on that? Having none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second?
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes have been approved for October 16th. Moving along to the November 6th, 2006. Any board members have any questions, comments, omissions, or anything to add on those minutes? Hearing none at that time, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as well.
So move.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
We only had 4 members in the evening. Mr. Claremont was not present, therefore he'll abstain from, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Rich was out.
Rich was, no, Joe was here, my apologies. So we have 4 members in favor and 1 against, right? So Mr. Lockhart was not present, so he will abstain, my apologies on that. Moving along on tonight's agenda, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 public hearings. Before we start the public hearings, I'll consider the board to make a motion that we waive the agenda and take up one of the matters that are listed under new business, which is also under our old business, if I may.
So moved.
Okay?
I'll second.
Motion's made in favor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Therefore, I'm going to move on to, under old business, is also considered new business for us, because it's been before us in the past, as a project that we approved. This is lot releases, Residential First Development Corporation, which is at 1436 Gorham Street. The board will discuss the lot release proposal for the 2 lots located in the Residence First Development Corporation project. The addresses of the lots are 99-101 and 107. And I have, it says 107-107 Seneca Street. Is that a misprint?
It's 107 to 109.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Thank you, sir.
109.
So 107, 109 Seneca Street. This is the old Shaughnessy Terrace matter out there on Gorham Street. Could we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Yes, my name is Dennis Connors. I'm representing the Residence First Development Corporation. Thank you very much for taking this item first tonight. It should be quick. As the chairman stated, we're requesting the release of those 2 lots, lots 80 and 81, as shown on the subdivision plan. They front on a public way, and we're looking for the authority to release those lots, the planning department to release those lots after they sign off by the appropriate city departments. Well, we'll be coming back within a month or 60 days to request the remainder of the lots in Zone 2 be released also. But it's down the road.
I know as a background, you were here a little while ago. We released some of the other previous lots already, correct?
Yes, as you know, we broke the project up into different zones. We released all those lots in Zone 1, and they're fully occupied now. So the next phase of the construction we started on was Zone 2. These 2 lots happen to front on Seneca Street, which are outside the subdivision, though they are part of they're included in the subdivision. And just, we have them completed. The infrastructure will be completed within 30 days, the sidewalks and so forth, and we'll be able to sell those homes immediately and get cash into the nonprofit development corporation.
Thank you, sir. Before I turn it over to the board, does anybody here in attendance tonight have any questions or concerns and want to be heard on this project? I know it's not a public hearing, but if anybody's here who has any concerns, I'd be more than happy to listen to them. Hearing none, I'll turn it over. Any questions to the board members? Yes, Mr.
Chairman.
Jensen.
I was just wondering if James could comment on his feelings about releasing these ahead of, approval by the appropriate city departments.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. As Mr. Connors pointed out, these are part of the subdivision, but they aren't part of the actual phasing for the approved subdivision plans that are formerly known as the Shaughnessy Terrace, the Julian Steel site. So from the planning department perspective, we don't really see it being an issue to release these lots. Again, it's up to the board. The authority is with the board, which is why it's before you tonight. The main reasons why we have limited concerns is because it is on an existing street. They do need to provide services to these lots and these buildings, but that's required regardless of whether or not it's part of the subdivision plans. And it has minimal impact on the rest of the development itself. So we really see that there's limited concerns on our end with regards to the release of these lots. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Any other questions, Steve, or no? Any other questions, the board members? No?
I have none.
Here, sure. Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Here and then, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we authorize the lot releases upon the proper sign-offs from the city departments and the issuance of the occupancy certificates.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Mr. Fischett, you abstain, correct? Okay. So the vote is 4 in favor, 0 against, and 1 to abstain. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you
Connor.
very much, appreciate
Good
it.
luck. Moving back to the order of the agenda for the public hearings. The first matter scheduled tonight for public hearing is a repetitive petition, 21 Eugene Street. The Lowell Planning Board will review an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals by Albert Stamp for variances required to construct a single-family dwelling on the property located at 21 Eugene Street. On January 22nd, 2007, the Zoning Board of Appeals took a unfavorable action on the previous proposal at that site. In order for the Zoning Board of Appeals to consider the merits of this application, the planning board must consent that the new application contains specific and material changes from the first application. The planning board will take this vote at the conclusion of the public hearing. For those in attendance who are listening, watching at home, what happens is our function is to decide if there has been changes to the previous application. If we vote that there has been changes, then the matter goes back to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they have a full public hearing at the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's a procedural matter where they have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They decide whether there was changes. If they voted on it, then they send it back to us. Then if we vote there has been material specific changes, if we do approve that, then it gets to go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for another hearing. Thank you. When we hear the case for the applicant, please.
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for your time. From the initial application that they had taken favorable action against, what I had done to correct that issue was to reduce the overall footprint to gain the side yard setbacks that the zoning board was looking for, as well as removal of the garage, and also the excavation of a portion of the rock to unveil the safety concerns that they had, whether there would be blasting or not, which we uncovered that there would not be an issue and would be removed with small machinery. So when we went back for the repetitive hearing for the zoning board, they supported the fact that there was substantial change, and here looking for the same.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the request for the repetitive petition? Anybody else in favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody like to speak in opposition of this petition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. At this point in time, I'll turn over to the board members. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman, if I would.
Sure.
The new plan dated, or revised rather, January 31, 2007, indicates a bit of a smaller footprint with setbacks on both side yards, 15.2. This new proposed dwelling has no garage?
No garage.
Okay, great. So I think your earlier one had a garage under this, you're just going to have a driveway, no garage?
Yes, it's just a two-level dwelling.
Okay, all right. That's all I have for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I have one.
Go ahead.
You changed the architecture of the outside to more conform with the neighborhood, is that correct? Did I read
Yes,
that
to be more
correctly?
consistent with the Victorian/colonial neighborhood that South Lowell does consist
Right, and
of.
that's what we're looking at here.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fischett, any questions, concerns?
No, Mr. Chairman, just my thoughts. I know what we're determining, whether there's specific material changes, and that the zoning board of appeals would actually be hearing the petitioner regarding the project itself. And clearly, when I look at what the concerns were, originally, when this was before the zoning board of appeals, the structure, the dimensions were changed to increase the setbacks, and the concern of the ledge appears to at least have been looked into, and you'll have some findings for the zoning board of appeals with that. And the design, I must say, is much more pleasing than the original, so at least from determining whether there's specific material changes, for myself, I certainly believe that there is.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Genman, any questions, concerns?
Yes, James, I wonder if you could tell me, the petitioner mentioned that the zoning board felt that there were material changes and sent it to the planning board. Is that the order of events here? Does the petitioner submit this to the zoning board? They find that there are material changes and they submit it back to us for approval? Is that?
James, I can comment on that if you want. I mean,
If
yes,
you-
that's the procedure. It has to go back to them first. They have to make the finding that the lead is enough, and then it has to come back before us, and then we have to agree as well. Then it goes back to them for another public hearing. You know, like in our packet tonight, how we have the recommendations on the zoning board of appeals? Basically, it follows the same procedure. How we recommend first, then it goes to them. This,
Right.
if you remember, this came before us a ways back,
Yes.
and I believe we voted against it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went over to the zoning board of appeals. I know some of their concerns was the ledge and the big rock that was there,
Correct.
right? So then, when they do the repetitive petition, it starts there, then they either approve it or deny it, then comes back here, then if we don't approve it, it doesn't make it back to them for public hearing. So that's the procedure that has to come. I know it sounds like it's back and
No, I
forth.
understand. I'm
Yeah,
just
but I
trying to
mean,
clarify.
Am I correct on that, James? Anything different that I misspoke, or?
No, you're basically, that covers it. The statute basically states that if a property has a project denied on site and a proposal is submitted within 2 years of that denial, it needs to go through this repetitive petition process, which we're going through now. The repetitive petition process basically requires the planning board and the permit granting authority, which in this case is the ZBA for this project. For other projects, it may be the planning board, so it could be one process, to basically find that there are material and substantial changes from the original application to the new application. Once that is determined, if there are material and substantial changes, then it can be put forward for whatever permit is required for that project. So, yes.
I don't see any information about the zoning board having a concern about the undersized lot. Was that not a concern of theirs?
I think what it comes down to is they're going to have to either grant or deny the variance when it goes back before them because of the undersized lot. So that's what will be their final vote when they do the public hearing. So that's the question on, because he is requesting a variance for the undersized lot, correct, sir?
Correct.
Right.
If I may just speak, Mr. Chairman, basically, this round of the hearings, the repetitive petition round, is just to determine whether or not there are material or substantial changes. It doesn't talk about content. The content discussion will come up when the applicant reapplies for in this case, a variance.
Well, it's just as indicated, whether there's been that substantial material change to bring it back before them. Right. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah,
I know it's kinda-
it does. I
kind
guess,
of
I guess
hard.
my issue is that personally, I think the lot is too small for this structure. I don't think it's appropriate to be building this dwelling on this lot because I think it's undersized, it's a crowded neighborhood as it is. I think it's inappropriate. The vote before us is are there substantial changes to the design? And I guess there have been some changes to the design. The zoning board sent it back to us, so I guess they feel there's substantial changes. I don't think he can, personally, I don't think he can make a change that's substantial enough to support this. But under the circumstances, since we're talking about whether or not the changes have been substantial, the zoning board felt that they were substantial, or they wouldn't have sent it back to us. I guess I can go along with that.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on that too,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
When this matter goes back to the ZBA for a hearing on the merits, it's going to come back to us first as well for our recommendation on the merits of the case. So we'll be able to comment on the merits as well. So this won't be the last time we see it.
Yeah, well, except that you know how much those recommendations are worth.
No, that's the
You know,
process.
it's a
So.
recommendation, but it really does not binding in any way, so I understand the process, though.
Any other questions? Okay. I guess it's my turn then. I know one of the concerns that I had when I visited the site the first time, and I think it was basically some of the concerns that the zoning board of appeals had when I watched the meeting on TV when you were before them, was the size of that big rock.
Yes.
Going by there this week, I know the rock's gone.
What's that?
The rock's not there anymore.
A good portion of it's been
Right.
taken down with small machinery.
Yeah, before when you went by, there was
was
a big
it,
back.
yeah.
You go by there now,
West side.
I went by early in the week, you can tell where the big part of the rock
Well,
is
since
moved.
the snow has melted, a lot of the soil's come back from where we had moved it. What we did was we tested the ground to figure out where the foundation's going to be present, if it's going to require any kind of heavy equipment. It's very unlikely from what we went through with the small machinery back in January. We had that warm spell. I took that opportunity to go over there and really, before I get any more involved, to figure out how in-depth I would have to get into it. And it was shearing off pretty easily.
Because when I visited this week, you can tell you dug it up, it has the red plastic tape all around it, there's a
Yes,
barrel in the front
yes.
there, but that big rock wasn't there like
Right.
it was before. And I believe, when I watched the zoning board of appeals, their question was whether there ledge underneath there, and the difference was, and I think some of your testimony was that even some of the property to the right that looks like it's your neighbor's is actually yours.
Yes.
Okay. So I know by looking at the site, obviously before, I know it's an undersized lot, and that's for another day, but I think the main concern they had without that rock there, which made it look a lot different than it
Lot
looks today.
smaller, yes.
Yeah, it did, because basically that big boulder on top consumed a good part of your lot.
Right, it is very deceiving. If you were to visit the markers that are present,
Yep, I noticed those when I was there, yes.
yeah, they jog over to the right, behind that house.
Right.
At one point, I had to relinquish a sliver, because the house that was on the right was also my family's prior to that, so there was no conflict at that time. When the most recent owners, the Levinsons, closed on the house, they were having a deed issue because of the fact that the house was a foot onto my property. So that driveway that exists there belongs to me. I let them use it. They've actually just added a driveway, so it's deceiving looking at
It
it.
is.
And to the left, the same can be said with the house that was built on the left.
Right.
That's actually physically bigger than what I'm looking to do, and they're basically right up to my property line.
Because when I visited the first time, before the benefit of the public hearing from the zoning board of appeals, it looked like that was the neighbors to your right's driveway, and then you explained that night at the meeting that that
Correct.
was your property. I don't know if it was Mr. Kazan or one of the board members who asked you that question, and you replied that
Yes.
that was yours.
Yes,
I know they were up there visiting the site as well.
yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no further comments. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to what's the request of the board members.
Mr. Chairman, given the change in the side yard setbacks on the new plan, the smaller overall footprint of the building that's proposed, and the change in design, and the excavation to reveal that the ledge, the concern regarding the ledge has been alleviated, I would make a motion that we consent to the application as having specific and material changes and send it back to the ZBA.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So, all board members are in favor, so the vote is 5-0 in favor. So the matter will go back to the zoning board of appeals for public hearing. Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving along, the next matter we have on tonight is a site plan and a special permit. This is at 672-674 Chelmsford Street. The Lowell Planning Board will review an application by Daniel and Sidney Sacco for site plan review and special permit for the development of property located at the above address. The proposal includes the construction of 2 three-bedroom units onto the back of an existing two-unit residential structure with associated landscaping and parking. The proposal is located on 11,559 square foot lot in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district and requires a special permit review under section 9.4 of Article 12 and site plan review under Article 11.4 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Lowell. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Ted Doucette. I'm from Polaris Engineering, representing the applicants today, Dan and Cindy Sacco. Mr. Sacco is here today. You may recall this application, we came in for 2 pre-application sessions to evaluate different alternatives. If you remember, some board members had concerns or had some comments that they'd like to see options with 2 buildings out here, so we did go through 2 other options with the buildings. If you remember, they were placed over here, and those did not meet all the zoning requirements such as setbacks and open space and things like that. So we came back and developed this plan here, which shows to extend the existing building. The applicant has met with the neighbors, and he's telling me he did not hear of any major objections to this. So now we're going to present the plan that we have, that we've decided on. And this is Chelmsford Street here. Here's the existing building in gray. The additional units are here on the back. We're going to have parking under for each unit, and we're going to add parking over here. We're going to have 6 units here and 2 underneath to meet the zoning requirements. The other zoning requirements that are met are the open space here and here. We also have a buffer that we feel is adequate to screen the parking from the street, and there are some trees that are going to come down. This one over here is probably going to come down, and this one down here is likely to come down. Some of the planning board's comments before were to match the architecture to the existing building and to the neighborhood, and we've done that. I believe you all have some half-size drawings there, but this is basically the layout of the building. Here's your existing building here, and this is the proposed building. This building contains these bump-out gables, and we're going to add some to this building to make that a little more continuous. We have some bump-outs trying to mimic this one right here. And one of the comments from the planning department is to make sure all the siding matches, and this rendering is to take in to show 2 different materials just to call them out, the separate buildings from one another. But I assure you that the entire building will be sided in the same color and match the lines, and that'd be a satisfactory condition to the applicant. And this is the front view, which is very similar to the existing front view.
Anything else, sir? Anybody else?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I guess
Okay.
yeah.
No
open up to the board.
problem. Anybody else with you as part of the applicant who wants to speak at this time before I turn it over to the public?
I think the applicant will just wait to see. He doesn't have any comments
Thank
right
you.
now, but if
Okay.
he has any other comments.
All right. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to the public, and if we have any questions for you, we'll get back to you, okay? Thank you, sir. At this point in time, on the public hearing, anybody here like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody here would like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. I'll turn it over to the board members. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns? I do have one question. Well,
I have one.
okay, go ahead. I'll let Mr. Lockhart go first.
I just had a question relative to, it's pretty dense over there, and the material that we have alludes to some buffer between, and some plantings and trees going in. Can you just explain what you might be doing in terms of buffering from,
Yeah, I was
on the
speaking with.
north and south sides of the lot?
Sure. I was speaking with staff today, and they said that they'd be happy to work with us. And obviously, the applicant knows that there may be some requests. These shrubs in this area will remain, and these shrubs will remain. There's no No definitive plan to do anything right now. You know, we know there could be a couple trees planted along here and a couple of trees planted along here. I know the neighbor, you know, would like to see this tree actually come down because she has her garden right here and she'd like to get some sun into her garden. You know, there would be some, you know, open to putting some shrubs around here, and you know, there's this garage back here that's coming down too. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that also. But there's a garage here that'll be coming down, so I'm sure the applicant would probably want to put something down here because there is a multi-unit right here. I think that's either 14 or 17 units, so I'm sure he's going to be wanting to put
All
something.
right, so you're
in
not
that one, too.
opposed to doing whatever's necessary?
No, we're not opposed to doing something, you know, reasonable and, you know, something appropriate for the neighborhood and this
Sure,
property.
okay. Are you going to increase any outside lighting because of the parking area, or?
I believe we had stated in the
Not that
plans
big,
that
but
there's going to be some overhead lights. I think there were 200 watts just over the
On the
garages or over the walkways.
Okay, and lastly, the engineering department had some questions about, yeah, about testing the subsoil or something. You touch base with them on any concerns they might have, engineering?
Well, we haven't tested yet because the weather hasn't been appropriate for testing, you know, before
Right.
this was submitted. So we know the testing has to be done. We know the ground water requirements. The existing drive here is about 2 feet above this, the lawn area. So, you know, looking at that and looking at the soil maps, we feel that there is going to be adequate offset to groundwater for the system.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Richard. Any of the board members, questions, concerns? Mr. Genvin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have some concerns about this project, and I think they mostly gear around character of the neighborhood. If you drive up and down the streets on either side of the project, especially Newell Street, you'll find that you know, you have mostly single-family, maybe some two-family houses there. And if you do go down Doan Street, there is a townhouse development there, but a lot of them are for sale. I'm not sure, and I don't think it's very attractive or lends to the character of the neighborhood. So I feel as though that adding another 2 units, making this a 4-unit structure in that neighborhood, has some issues with regard to neighborhood character. Also, I'm concerned if you, again, down on Newell Street, there's several houses, single-family houses with lots that are similar to this on the side, and I'm concerned that by, you know, allowing this type of development, we're going to be setting a precedent that we may see, you know, 4-family structures in that entire block. And, you know, right now it's a nice little neighborhood with, you know, it is off of Chelmsford Street, but it's still relatively quiet. And, you know, I don't want to see those houses and those lots develop into something that they're not now. So that's my primary concern. I also know that I was up there a couple times. In fact, I just came from there, and getting in and out of that driveway onto Chelmsford Street is a challenge, and I'm worried about the effects of additional cars coming in and out of there on a regular basis. You know, you may end up having to back out there, and I think that could be a potential traffic problem. So those are my major concerns with regard to this project.
Thank you, Mr. Genvin. Anybody else? Jerry, any questions, concerns? Mr. Fischert?
Just with the design of the building, I know for a single family in the TMU zone, the maximum height is 32, and then for other residential dwellings, it's 45, and I think you're looking at 37. If you could put the rendering back up there, just from a visual aspect. I know when you came here for the preliminary review, looking at the various options, one of the appealing things of this particular option was, at least from Chelmsford Street, it doesn't really change the streetscape from that perspective. But I have to say that the different height of the roofs, I don't think are quite as attractive as what I would like to see it. But if you could give me a little, and I know you're trying to get the garages, and that gives you the parking, required parking as well by having the parking underneath. But just wondering, is that pitch, is that the same pitch as the roof pitch as the existing structure? And if you tried to lower that from the pitch, is that going to throw that off, or is that going to from a visual aspect.
Talking pitches and slope
Yeah,
of the roof?
yes,
Or as, okay. I haven't measured it. It's something that we can definitely address in a comment if requested. Just looking at this rendering, it looks to be similar, it doesn't look to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Obviously these would all be constructed the same, and, I can't speak to that right now as far as the exact, maybe
Right.
shown on some of the elevations that you have there. And I recall the conversation we had about the roof lines and not changing it. This portion is not going to change, so yeah,
Right.
sitting in front of it is not going to be a change. As you're approaching and coming in, you're seeing some of this, there is going to be a little bit of a change in the streetscape. Architect had only so much to work with as far as elevations and things like that, and the request of the applicant. So we've done everything we can, or he has done everything he can, trying to balance all of the requests. So if there are other changes that we'd like to be investigated, if the board has any, if there's anything specific that you'd like us to look at, we'd be happy to do that. But like I said, balancing everything that we have to balance,
Right, I understand.
and stay within the regulations. This is what
Because
came out.
with this, and I know we talked about the different options, right now you meet the open space, you meet the parking, and the concern was the streetscape, and I know even from the traffic engineer, and I think Mr. Lockhart mentioned that as well, as the concern is the screening of the parking area from the roadway. And I certainly would be looking for some sort of substantial screening from that, because right now, that's more green space that really, want to try to create a situation where you're not looking at a parking lot for the most part.
If you've been by this, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, go ahead, Seth. You can- I'm sorry.
i-
Go ahead,
if-
you can respond, yes.
If you've been by the site, which I'm sure you have, been down the street quite a few times, you haven't noticed this house. These shrubs are about 6 feet high. So as far as screening, yeah, you're going to screen the car. I mean, you drive by, there's no leaves on them, you're going to be able to see them. But if you're walking by or driving by, you're not going to be. I don't think it's going to be. You're not going to be walking by a parking lot in front of like a CVS or something like that. So I think there's screening there. And I think that's better than trees sometimes, because once you get trees up and you get there, a canopy, you're only looking at the trunks at eye height anyway. So, I mean, definitely there could be some trees if we wanted to try and screen this house. You're not going to screen that whole house anyway, the whole way. So I think any concerns you have about screening would be easily addressed in talking about the landscaping.
No further comments, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Joe, any questions, concerns?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, just a few. On your plans, the new construction, the bump outs at the top for the gables, does that provide living space? Is that a bedroom up there, or what's contained up there?
I believe the third floor is going to be for living space.
Bedrooms up there?
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't look at the plans right before I left, but I believe there's bedrooms up there, at least one
Okay.
bedroom up there.
And in the older space, you're going to add those bump outs, those gables?
Right, the gables that didn't match, I mean, the gables that are they're non-existent right now, so these gables are going to be added to match the new construction. We can make some changes here, make some additions here to match this, and then we decide to also match this to look more like that.
Is that now living space in the older dwelling, in the
I'll have
current
to defer
dwelling?
to the applicant.
It's not? Okay, will there be living space?
I'm sorry, sir, if you could just come to the microphone, because it doesn't pick up your voice for people who are viewing at home,
No,
okay?
that's not going to be
Thank
living
you.
space.
Okay, so in the older property, it will not. How many bedrooms are in the in the current property?
It's two bedrooms,
Two bedrooms, and the new property is going to be
three.
three bedrooms. Okay. Didn't notice any fire department review. Has the fire department reviewed this project at all?
They haven't reviewed the plan. I have discussed it with, I can't remember the captain, but I spoke to the captain today, and he pointed me in the direction of the fire code, and it will require sprinklers. And just to, you won't find comments from the water department either in there. I spoke with Mr. Trainer down at the water department, and he said, you're probably going to end up revising this plan anyway, so here are my comments, put them on the next plan, and I'll take a look at it. But his concerns were he wanted each of the new units to have an individual service tapped in at the water main and run in with one-inch copper into here. And then he also said, make sure you account for your fire suppression line also. So his concern is dig once, get it all done. And it's, 1-inch line for each one, just in case they're sold in the future. And we talked about it, and he said it's probably a good idea to put 1-inch lines in the ground put curb stops on them, leave them at the property line in case we ever want to tie these in individually as well. So, yes, we have spoken to fire and water.
Okay, hopefully we can get some comments from them, because we like to see some report or recommendation from the fire department as to whether they feel the access and the egress is sufficient for fire apparatus. Now, you mentioned the building, if you're approved, will be one contiguous building, and you intend to replace all the siding with the same type of siding, correct?
Correct.
I was reading, or attempting to read, the notes of the traffic engineer, and if I'm following it correctly, he says everything in terms of traffic and parking works, but in terms of streetscape, I think there is an opportunity to construct the second building side by side, so I guess his recommendation was the side by side rather than this. And he's concerned about screening the cars again from the street view. So that, I think that's a comment that's come up time and time again, to attempt to provide appropriate screening, not only for the cars that are parked, but also for the neighbors. Now, there's a couple of trees that are coming down on the site, correct? Could you just point out again where those are?
Yes, that's correct. There's a maple tree here that's obviously going to be within the footprint, the overhang of the building. And there's this pine tree that doesn't have to come down, but it may come down as part of the project. I don't know, Dan, if Dan wants to speak to that, but there's been a request, by the neighbor, like I said, to take it down. But those are the two trees that we've discussed that would come down, two large trees.
Yeah, well, we're not hearing any opposition from any of your neighbors here, but it'd be nice to have, appropriate vegetative screening along the back of the property, along the neighbor's property, so to cut down on the visual effect, I would suspect.
Okay, and I think we talked about that. It could either be a condition, or we could submit something else back to staff.
Just a couple of other comments in terms of the location of the utility meters. Where are those going to be?
They haven't been laid out yet, but there are places behind and in front where we could get some shrubs around them, some little small shrubs. I've seen that done before.
And if your detention system is approved, you'll need to provide an easement to the city for access and repair if necessary. That's all the comments I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to get back to where Mr. Lockhart left off, did you receive the notice from Mr. LeBrecq about in regards to the detention area? Do you have a comment? Do you have a copy of that?
I have the package here. If you can remind me who Mr. Breck is, which department that was?
He's the assistant city engineer.
Okay.
That was talking about your detention system that Mr. Lockhart brought up earlier. He said and I know you talked basically about the soil on that. Has this subsoil been tested for the underground detention system? And he says he doesn't know if the system can be installed, and what happens then, other than that, the plan seems okay. Then he says if he can't put the system in, he recommends to us that the unit should not be built. So obviously, that's a concern until we have that approval by the city engineer. I know Mr. Lockhart mentioned that briefly, but I just want to make sure that have you seen a copy of that?
I have seen it.
Okay. So I know you commented on that briefly. You said that you haven't had a chance to do it because of the weather, but obviously that's something that you're going to do, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, is that something that would be a condition, or was that something you'd like to see before you
It's
approve?
totally up to the board members. So obviously, that's a recommendation coming to us. And to be honest with you, it's not too often that we get one that says, if it can't be installed, then we recommend you don't build it. So I think it's a pretty
First
strong
time I heard
recommendation.
the same.
Usually, we've never seen it in those words before, to be honest with you.
We've gone down a long road here with the applicant, so we
Yeah.
feel
So I'm
pretty
just,
confident, yeah.
reason why I'm bringing it out again, even though you touched on it, like, because of the strong wording there. And I think I just want to bring that to your attention. That is a strong wording, and usually we don't get it. They make recommendations to us, some of them, but they don't come out and say, if this doesn't pass, we don't recommend it be built. So I think it's a strong recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you hear me on that.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Getting back to the plan itself, I do remember when you came in twice on the preliminary. I remember we talked about either A, B, or C, when we referred to all three of them. I know with the preliminary plan, we did request that you go speak with your neighbors to see what their layout be, because it'll be affecting them the most. I think even when you came in the preliminary, my mind has changed since I think you did a better layout by setting it up this way. I think because it has less of an impact in the neighborhood because it's behind the existing house now. By putting it to the right, I think that you're adding more, and it does have more of a effect on the neighborhood character. So I think from the street now, it's not gonna look much different, because when you do drive by there now, what you see behind the house is the garage. When you go by there now, and, I mean, you know, when you look at it again now, you're not gonna see much difference from the street. So I think that's gonna have a less of an impact than if you put it to the right. And some of our concerns, at least one of mine was, when you came in last time, is how that would affect your neighbor to the right. And we, you know, we suggest you speak with them, because nothing with your new design is gonna affect your neighbor to the left. Because everything, you know, your side yard is staying the same, everything else will be consistent the same. So, and I know one of the concerns we had is, if you're gonna side it, to side the front building as well as the new one, and you address that issue, because obviously trying to match the siding over time with weathering, it's gotta stick out. So if you
Right.
get- And I remember, you indicated before at the preliminary that you would side the whole building, so I'm glad you came back with that. But I think for appearance sake, it makes a big difference. I really do. The landscape, and I'm just gonna ask James if he may comment on, I know on Division of Planning and Development's comments, they had a question, however, about the 2 trees, and if I could just ask James if you could expand on that just a little bit, if you don't mind me imposing on you?
No, I can expand on that. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess my main comment went back to screening and ensuring that that when you're losing some vegetation on a site that provides a natural buffer, and if you look at that from multiple areas in the neighborhood, there is a possibility of losing some screening of what could be there and what is already existing there. So I was just trying to make sure the board was aware that should some of those mature trees be taken down, the board may wish to consider having a landscaping plan that would either replicate those trees that are being taken down, or at least provide buffering and other avenues, or DPD staff is always willing to work with the applicant on one of the best approaches. We do have a landscape design planner on staff that can easily look at the site and give her professional recommendation with regards to screening. I just want to make sure that the board was aware of that, though.
Right. Thank you, James, I appreciate that. In regards to the tree to the back rear, when I visited the site the first time, I did pull in your driveway, and I pulled all the way up to the garage. When I visited again this week, I didn't come on the site, I parked across the street, looked at it from the side. So that you don't see as much from the street, but I think the concern is, in regards to the back neighbor, I think by that screening, I think it would help your project as well as the project behind you. I think it'd be twofold by putting in some, you know, where that tree goes, or if it does go because you need it for the construction space, if some type of screening could be put in there and it's placed thereafter.
Well, she requested it to be.
The one to the far back by the garage is what I'm starting.
Yeah,
Okay,
she wants it down.
okay.
The
Talking this
neighbor
one?
behind.
I'm talking that one.
Dan?
Oh, the
The
big one?
maple.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Talk about I'll get
Oh,
to the
yeah,
other one
they-
first. I'm talking about
they
the one
want-
by the garage.
Yeah, they want that. The other people want that one down because it's huge.
Yeah, 'cause like I said, when I pulled in the first time, I noticed it, but when you look at it from the street the other night, I didn't notice it, but I did notice the one to the right where the woman requested, so I'll get to that one next. So the one in the back, you're saying the neighbors behind you want that pulled down, or
Yeah.
the people behind you as well?
Yeah, because it's over in their yard too.
Okay, because it's getting
And
too
it's
big.
dangerous to the
Okay.
top of their house.
So if that came down, would you be willing to put some other type of,
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Now we'll get to the other one, which is by the woman who wants it so for her garden.
Yeah,
Wants
she
the tree
wants
down.
that gone.
Okay. If that came down, then if you put up some other type of landscaping there, it could maybe satisfy her as well,
Yeah.
where she could get lighting, but still not as big as what was there before. You have any problem with that?
That's not a problem.
Okay. Let me just check, I think I had one other comment. By looking at our review package, I know we got approval from the wastewater department. As indicated, many of the board members touched on we have approval from the traffic engineer. We did have comments from the city engineer, and the ones that were missing were from the fire department and the water department. Right. Besides that, I have no further comments. Thank you. This time, I'll turn it over to the board members. Anybody would like to make a motion of any further comments or concerns as a result of discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve, given the lack of opposition to this project from the neighbors. We have two matters before us. One is a site plan review and special permit. And I'd like to make a motion first on the site plan review that it be approved subject to conditions. And the conditions I'd like to suggest is that the applicant get fire department review and approval of the access and egress to make sure that it's appropriate and safe. That the entire building will appear as one contiguous building with the same siding. That the underground detention system be approved, and that the city be provided an easement for access in the event of an emergency as far as the detention system is concerned. I'd like to add as a condition, in terms of the visual buffers, that the applicant work with the DPD design landscaper to maintain the visual buffer as far as the parking is concerned, as long as it doesn't obstruct the sight lines going out to the street, and to install some vegetative buffering along the neighboring lots, again, working with the DPD design landscapers, and that utility meters not be visible from the street, and if there were going to be on the street sides, that they be appropriately screened. I propose those as the conditions on the site plan.
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion and just want to make a comment about the buffering. I think the only little concern that I have is what Mr. Gendron spoke to about the density of the area, and we don't want to set precedents. I think a lot can be accomplished with the buffer, with a formal plan and working with DPD. For that, I think, that'll soften the effect as well. But I'll second the motion
Okay.
as presented with those three conditions.
I think I totaled up at least 5 conditions. Yeah, one was the fire department detention system, the easement, the landscaping, the meters, and I think he also included the water department, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
I had fire department.
The siding, yeah. He had that all, I think that was part of all one condition, that it be one continuous building and the new siding, correct?
Correct.
Did you mention the water department, since we haven't got a comment on them yet, or did I misspeak on that?
I did not
Okay.
mention that, but if you want to add that as a condition, it would be fine.
Okay. Basically, what happens is, whenever we get the packet delivered to us, as you know, you have to give it to the other city departments in the city. Under our rules and regulations, we cannot vote on a matter unless we receive all those comments, or unless a certain amount of time has lapsed. So the only ones that we haven't received was the fire department, which was part of a motion that we get that with a favorable result. And I think as discussion, we're going to request that the water department give us a favorable recommendation too. Is that okay? Sure. All right. Any other board members have any questions or concerns? Yes, Mr. Jenner.
I just want to make one comment on the motion, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I had a question, too. You said that the new units are each going to have 3 bedrooms per, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So that would mean that you'd require, what's that, 2.25 parking spaces per unit? Is that correct, James?
0.5.
It's, the math for that is 0.75 per bedroom or 2 per unit, whichever is greater.
Right,
with
so if there's 3 units, that would be 2.25 per unit, which means you'd need 4.5 for the 2 new units, plus another 4 for the existing unit. I assume we round up in this equation, which would mean we'd need 9 qualified parking spaces.
You would round up, yes. In this case, there's 6 in the new units, so there's 10 total bedrooms. Multiply that by 0.75 is 7.5.
Yep.
So that's 8 parking spaces.
Yeah, but I assumed it was per unit, right? So we need 2.25 for the 2 new units?
No,
and
it's for the overall project. It's 0.75 per bedroom of the overall project, or 2 spaces per unit.
Okay. So I guess we split the hairs enough there to allow only 8 parking spaces. I have a real concern about congestion in the neighborhoods. I mean, the primary reason I wanted to come on this board is I wanted to work to reduce congestion in the neighborhoods. I'm afraid that in this city, we're going to build ourselves right out of the city, little by little, unit by unit. I know this is only 2 units. Increasing 42 doesn't sound like much, but then your neighbor down the street has a nice lot. Oh, gee, they built 2 units there. I could build 4 units here, sell those as condos maybe in the future, make a few bucks. I mean, I don't, you know, I can't go against anybody if I wanted to make a few bucks. I mean, I think that's great, but we have to protect our city. We have to protect our neighborhoods. And I think the majority of this neighborhood is a single-family, 2-family neighborhood. It's still alive there. I drove up and down the street. There's still families living there. And I think little by little, we're going to destroy these kind of neighborhoods if we don't take some action against that. And I'm afraid that we're setting a precedent here. I think this is out of character with the neighborhood. Most of the open space that you have now is going to be paved and used for parking lots. You know, I think it's out of character with what's in the neighborhood now. I think we're setting a bad precedent. I think that neighborhood is going to become a series of condos in the not-too-distant future if we continue to let this kind of development go on. So I'm sorry. You've been very professional. You've been here 3 times, but I haven't changed my stance, as you know, from the very beginning, and I don't feel as though this is appropriate for that neighborhood.
Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor, and the motion's been seconded. All in favor of the motion for approval of the site plan with the conditions as listed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. Anybody against?
No.
Okay. So in regards to the site plan, the vote is 4 in favor and 1 against, so the site plan is approved. Now, we'll take a vote in regards to the special permit.
I'll make the same motion with regard to the special permit, Mr. Chairman, with the same 6 conditions we listed earlier.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor in regards to the special permit. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All who vote against?
No.
Okay. So in regards to the special permit, the vote carries. You need 4 votes for the special permit, which you received. So the special permit is vote of 4 to 1. So that matter has been approved with the exact same conditions. If any of those conditions are not met, then the project will be denied. Good luck. Wish you well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The next matter on our agenda tonight is a site plan for 8112 Gorham Street. The Lowell Planning Board, we review an application by Watermark Engineering and the City of Lowell School Department for site plan review for the development of a property located at 812 Gorham Street. The proposal includes the renovation of a late 19th century Butler Elementary School and the new construction of 2 educational wings. Parking for the facility will consist of 24 spaces in 2 parking areas with access off Ellsworth Street and Carter Street. The proposal is located on 59,000 square foot lot in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please? You can take your time to set up and we'll be right with you. Okay. Take your time to set.
Okay, I'm talking to myself.
So those people who are attending, this is the old Butler Elementary School on Gorham Street. While we're waiting for the applicant to set up, as indicated on all our site plans and our special permits, the copy of the plans go out to different departments through the city. We have received comments from the Water Utility Department. We have comments from the Board of Health. We do have comments from the Assistant City Engineer. We do have comments from Division of Planning and Development. And we do have comments from Conservation. Are you all set with your presentation, sir?
Yes.
Okay, is your mic on? Usually if you have the green light, it should be, okay. All right, if you could just state your name and who you're with.
Hi, I'm John Haley. I'm with Watermark. We're the owner's project manager for the city of Lowell. I also have Jay Lane here representing the school department, Dave Croteau and Dan Bragg from Flansburgh, the architects. Just a quick status of where this project's at. We've been including all the departments throughout the design at 50%, at 90%, so they've been reviewing the designs. We've been including them in different meetings. We're currently in the bid phase for both projects. We do not know at this point if both projects will proceed or if it will be just one project. Once the bid pricing comes in, then the city council is going to take a vote whether they decide with one or two schools. So with both of these schools that we're discussing now, we don't know if they're both proceeding or just one.
So just so your comments for people who are watching, you mean the two schools, we have another one on our agenda tonight, which is the Maury School?
Yes,
Okay,
correct. The
thank
Stapp and Saracen and the Maury.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear for everybody. Thank you, sir.
That bidding process is due to end next Wednesday. At that point, they'll know, and there'll be a city council vote soon thereafter of how we're going to proceed. So there are a number of actions that have not been taken yet because of the need for the city council vote. With regards to the Stapp and Saracen, there's some property acquisition with regards to parking that needs to happen, but until they make that vote, that process has not started. So upon the contract award, we are going to include the neighborhoods in a regular scheduled meeting to give them an update periodically where the project is. Once we award the contract to the general contractor and they have their schedule, at that point we'll know the timeline for the project. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Croteau to kind of explain the project.
Thanks, John. We also have a model up here, and it may be helpful if you come up and see it when I talk about things, but if you need to. But I'll run through the drawings first, and if that's helpful, we can talk about that. I'll start with the site plan review, and I think the board had asked about some of the building plans, which I also have, and I'll try to run through that pretty quickly to show you the interior planning of the building, as well as a rendered elevation. Okay. The original building on this site plan is this center yellow area, and primarily what we're doing is to add on two wings. On the left side, or building A, is the gymnasium and cafeteria. It essentially becomes a community center in a way. It has a bridge that connects across to the original building. On the right side of the building is a classroom wing, but it includes the specialty classrooms, an art room, kindergartens, library, the science room, the types of spaces that can't really fit in the existing building. The existing building will be essentially fully restored with primarily general classrooms. It'll have the administrative areas, health suite, and so forth. We're going to be excavating an area here and using the lower level of the existing building for classrooms. It'll open onto grade, so it'll no longer be a basement. Fundamentally, what we're trying to do, and you can see it in that model and also in this rendering, is to create modest additions onto the building that are in keeping with the character. Oh, sorry. Can you all see that back there? Yeah. But to create two additions on either side of the existing building that are in character with the existing building. Will match the brick. There'll be similar detailing around the windows, some arch windows. We're using a mansard roof to conceal mechanical equipment that would be in keeping with the existing building. And also by using the lowest level, which you can see in this section, we're able to reduce the height of each of the additions to the building so that the new additions will be lower in height than the existing building in order to keep the scale down. We've also tried to push them in the plan in many ways really as far forward as possible. We did meet with the local historic commission and reviewed the plan with them. We didn't want to come too far forward because it would really diminish the integrity of the original building. So we're trying to reach the balance of having these two smaller facades flanking the existing building, have it set back enough to see that, but trying to stay clear of the residences that we know are at the around the rear of the site. In terms of the vehicular circulation and parking, we're creating a new bus drop-off that will be off of Gorham Street and onto the site, so that children dropped off by bus will be well off of Gorham. Actually, there's a grade rise here. I think, as you all know, there's a retaining wall in front of the existing school. So the bus will be up above that retaining wall and have handicapped accessibility to the front of the school with a planted buffer between the bus drop-off and Gorham Street. Okay, and also by having this area lower, the play yard that's in front of the kindergartens will be somewhat depressed from Gorham, isolating it from the surrounding traffic. There are two parking areas, and John mentioned some land acquisition. There are two now, one across Gorham Street for staff, another parking area here which will also serve as a drop-off for special needs. There's an entry into this wing of the building, so you have almost direct entry into the building for special needs. And then parent drop-off will be around the rear in a circulation route like that, so that the buses and parents are separated entirely to minimize the congestion. So you have cars on one side of the school and buses on the other side, so presumably there would be less backup and traffic on Gorham with that circulation. In terms of the, just to quickly go through the interior planning, on the lowest level is a cafeteria, kindergarten areas that all have, the kindergarten areas then have grade access for their play yards, and we're reusing some of the mechanical space and storage space that is in the existing building. On the main level, which is the entry level to the school, handicapped accessibility from the bus drop-off that's here, are the administration areas and the gymnasium, classroom areas, and to that wing I mentioned before, the music room, computer room, and science rooms. There are these coat rooms between existing classrooms that are going to be used as project rooms that will serve each of the classrooms. On the next two floors is the clear story of the gymnasium, so it will get clear story lighting, and skylights, so presumably there'll be less use of electric lights. Classrooms in the existing building, the media center and art room here, and then at the uppermost level of the existing building, we're using this area where there's the dormers as classroom space, are 6 more classrooms. That's a brief summary. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Is anybody else with you want to speak on behalf of your presentation before I turn it over to, excuse me. Is anybody else with you want to speak on behalf of this, for the applicants before we turn it over to the public?
Nope, I think we're all set.
Okay, at this point in time, thank you. I'll turn it over. Anybody here in attendance would like to speak in favor of this project? Yes, sir. If you come to the microphone and just give us your name and address, I would appreciate it.
My name is Francis King. I own a company called Action King, which has been located on Livingston Street for over 35 years. Unfortunately, the gentleman given the demonstration, I couldn't see through him to see everything that he tried to display. I have some concerns here. This is the first that I've seen of this drawing or this model here. Livingston Street is a very narrow street, and I run a type of company that uses 10-wheel vehicles. I'm in the waste removal business, portable toilet business, sewer cleaning. I employ approximately 15 people, and I'd like to see how this project will have an impact upon me. The street is narrow on Livingston Street. I am not here to stop this project, and I want to emphasize that. It's a pleasure to see that the school's going to be renovated. But there are concerns, and those concerns are where the parking is going to occur. How do I live with them? How my neighbors live with them? But I'm here to speak for myself. Therefore, can they be explained, if I understood the gentleman right, vehicles of the parents are going to come down Livingston Street and park in the rear. Am I correct?
Excuse me, you can address your questions to us, and then we'll ask the questions to the applicant, okay? Thank you.
Questions
All right,
towards you.
sure. We'll take that notice of question, and we'll address it for you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Will there be on-street parking for the school personnel? And where do I move my people to park? The street width coming on to Gorhams from Gorham Street, taking a right onto Livingston Street. In other words, passing the school, it's very difficult to make that turn. Is there going to be adjustments on land taking in that area to make it accessible?
Well, I can answer that question for you. That's up to the city council, not us. We have no control of land taking. That's way above our power.
But you understand my point
Yep,
is...
I understand that, yes. Yep.
To be quite honest with you, when if a school bus decides to make a right-hand turn there, you have to back up into Gorham Street to make the turn once you've started to make the turn. In other words, you proceed in, back up, adjust your vehicle, and make the turn. If you'll leave it open for me for further questions after I listen, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, ladies and gentlemen, my name for the record is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass., and I wish to be recorded in favor of this. It is a great mix of renovating the old Butler School, keeping that building, and making it the additions compatible to that building. So I want to be recorded in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I do
Goldman.
have one question. Is there going to be any space, and I don't know if Jay can answer this, but if there can be any outside space for, with fences for the school children to play in, and maybe that could be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Opposition? Hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I will turn it over to the board members, but before I do that, I just have one question first for myself. What kind of, how's your structure for the new building? I mean, the one that's existing now?
The structure?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Because
structure...
I know when you, it's nice reading your narrative, and as soon as I read your narrative, when it says it was built in 1882.
Yeah.
And then I know you had it, an addition was put on in 1895.
Yeah, that was the new addition.
And then I drove by it a couple of times, and so I figured I might as well throw that out there before everybody else starts in.
Yeah.
So I'll start with that.
Yeah. Well, we had a structural engineer review the structural integrity of the existing building. There has been some water damage over time, but that's hasn't impacted the structure as far as we can tell. There has been buckling of the floors, but that tends to be the planking that's all going to be replaced. Certainly heading into the building, we wouldn't be surprised if we encounter issues that need to be addressed, but that will be taken care of through the construction process, and any structural questions will be directed to the structural engineer, who will, assist in coming up with a safe solution in accordance with the Mass Building Code.
Okay. Thank you. By looking at that plan and look at the Maurice one that's coming up in a minute, this one seems older, and you're replacing that one, it, I guess the question went through my mind when I was visiting both sites, so. Okay, I'll turn it over to the board members at this time. Any of the board members' questions, concern? Mr. Fischett, if you would?
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
if you could please go over the parent drop-off again, because I can tell you, and even it filters its way all the way up to the city council, that, you know, you look at some of the schools around the city, and it's a real nightmare when, you know, and parent myself dropping off a
Yeah.
child, it's
Yeah.
a nightmare. So if you could go over that again, I
Sure,
would appreciate it. And taking into account, I think, some of the questions Mr. King had regarding Livingston Street, I'm a little concerned with that, and how it all relates to parking as well, because there's limited parking on this site.
Yeah.
So if you could go over that with
Sure.
some detail, I'd appreciate it.
Let me start off with the,
Maybe if you could stay on the other side, then this gentleman could see, or
Yeah,
or if you could
sure.
move over, whichever is more easier for the two of you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Let me address the parent drop-off first, and let me say that we had several meetings with both the school department, who has a way of handling their traffic patterns, and the city to come up with the best solution to get access to the building. And for some of the reasons that this gentleman mentioned in terms of the width of Livingston Street, it was determined that all of the buses and large delivery vehicles would be off of this front drive because of exactly that issue about being able to turn onto Livingston. So that's why this is such a broad turnaround here. This is a wide curb cut in order to allow buses to do exactly what you're saying in order to swing onto the site. So the intent is that only, how can I say this, passenger cars would be running on Livingston. All the rest of any larger vehicles would be off of Gorham. So essentially that drop-off, the parent drop-off, there's an entry here at the back of the building that connects through which you can see here. The yellow is the main circulation diagram of the interior of the school. It's basically a cruciform so that you can enter the back of the school here, and there's a main cross circulation here with stairs at each end so that the parents then can drop off from Livingston. It's only passenger vehicles there, and buses drop off from the front in order to try to separate that circulation, as I mentioned before. Does that?
Yeah, and then can you discuss a little bit of the parking, because I think that's going to
Oh, I'm
relate to
sorry.
that. Well, yeah, and that will relate to that, because one of the issues, I know we didn't have the interior floor plan. I don't know how many classrooms there actually are, but I know I have some questions as to whether or not there's adequate parking on
Yeah,
site right now.
There are,
as
just in terms of
proposed.
answering the classroom question, there are 16 general classrooms for grades 1 to 5. There's 3 kindergarten and 1 pre-K, so there's essentially 20 classrooms.
And we're supposed to have, is it 3 parking spaces
For
per
every
2
two,
instructional?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And right now, I think John from Watermark mentioned the possibility of land taking to deal with the parking issue. Right now, there are, I think, 24 spaces in these 2 lots that are shown as part of the application.
And there are a number of other city-owned parcels that are within a walking distance from here that would be potentially used as parking at this point in time without them knowing whether they're proceeding with this school. Those uses weren't defined at this point, but additional parking is going to be required. Specifically, this front parking lot here now is currently privately owned. But there are some other city-owned parcels within walking distance near the Cardinal O'Connell School and a few other that potentially would be used for parking. So the parking requirement is going to be attempted to be met if the school is going to proceed. But that wasn't part of the original design package and everything that Flansburgh had started with. So to do a whole change order where we were at the design process and to meet some state requirements to obtain funding, we couldn't resolve those issues. We need to know the dollar amount so the city council can vote by a certain deadline, or the state's going to take the money away or make their own decision.
Are you under time constraints?
With the state
with this
right now,
right now?
yes.
Okay.
They've given us 2 extensions already, and so that's why we're moving things in parallel, and there's like we'll talk about the Maury Park and a few other things that we can't address. We need to address the pricing and if they're going to proceed with too. And then we would address parking here and some other issues at the Maury.
And I believe Mr. Goldman had a good question regarding a play area on the site. Could you address that, please?
Yes, there's a hard surface play area here and a soft surface play area here. And then now the building, which it doesn't have it now, would have a 6,000 square foot gymnasium that would also serve as really as a play area, an interior play area. To be sure, it's a very tight site.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I mean, I appreciate the, visually, and you picked up on something I'm sensitive about. I like the way you addressed the height issue and fitting in the new wings so that it really doesn't dominate, the main focus is that existing structure, so. But, all right, no further comment.
I wanted to also add, there will be potentially, if this is proceeding, some additional roadway improvements along Livingston with regards to some turning and what have you, if this proceeds. So there are going to be potentially some additional improvements that the city's going to undertake if this proceeds.
Mr. Chairman? Sorry,
Sure.
I just...
Jerry, are you complete? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, thank you. James, you want to
I would
comment on something?
just a brief comment on some of the public bidding rules that I think Mr. Haley was discussing that may have prevented this proposal from including a lot of the concerns with regards to parking and Livingston Street updates. Essentially, the public bidding, or in order to make changes to the initial proposal that the school department put out that Mr. Haley received the rights to conduct the engineering for, it would require a change order, which is a lengthy process by which it probably didn't work into the time frame of what the school department was trying to do. So therefore, it was probably something that in order to add the parcels for example, the additional city parcels for additional parking, and in order to propose and actually do the work for the proposed changes to Livingston Street, it just didn't come under the time frame of what they're currently proposing here. With that said, it can be something that should the board wish to see those additions or changes in the future, it can always be in the form of a condition or that sort of process. But I just want to make a note that there is a pretty strict state regulation process that may have limited the ability for a lot of these questions that you have regarding parking and Livingston Street to not be included in this current proposal, that it just may not have, the time frame just may not have worked out. I just want the board to be aware of that as they look at this.
Thank you, James. Yes. Mr. Genman?
Sure, I think a lot of the issues have been touched upon, and that's good information, James. Certainly, the renovation and addition is sorely needed in the city, and we certainly don't want to delay anything such that we can't get the state funding, so all that's important. But I would say that in its current state, the parking seems woefully insufficient. If there's parent day at the school, they're going to be all over Mr. King's business. So I'm glad to hear that there's an ulterior plan, and I think it would be a good idea, as James suggests, for us to put a condition on that there be additional accommodations made for parking at the site. I had one question on the gymnasium. Is that a full-size gym? Do we know?
Yeah, the state actually regulates the size of gyms for elementary schools.
Oh, really?
So it's not a full-size high school gym.
Okay.
And I think the dimensions are, I think it's, I want to say it's 50 feet wide by 90 feet long. Is it 90 feet? 74 feet. So 74 feet.
So the same as we have in our other junior highs,
Yeah.
the new junior highs around the city.
Yeah.
How about is there accommodations made to pull the bleachers out without going on?
They're electronically operated.
Okay, and will they cover the gymnasium floor when they're pulled out to full?
Well, what the school has asked is at the Stark, they have a system at the Stark LoSa that works well, which is that for a game, just 2 rows come out.
I see.
But if they have an assembly during the day,
Right.
there's, I think, 6 or 8 rows, so that there's enough, they can use the bleachers for a school assembly.
I see.
But given the requirements of the gymnasium size dictated by the state, there really isn't space to have, say, 8 rows of bleachers and then a basketball court. So that's essentially
Interesting.
that's the compromise. You have the couple bleachers. So if you go and see a game,
Yeah.
you know, that's
Yeah,
the
it's always been
situation.
a little problem I've had with these beautiful new schools we have. When we go to see our kids play basketball at the gym, we can't pull the bleachers out to sit and watch them. Seems ridiculous, but I guess if it's a state regulation, it's a state regulation.
Yeah,
Glad to hear they are electronically operated too, because that's always a challenge too,
Yeah.
trying to get them out. So that sounds good. I had a question, another question about the rear entrance. Currently, is that the rear entrance used as a method of getting in and out of the building?
Well, right now, the building's abandoned.
Right.
I think, well, John might know, because
I went to this school. I actually graduated from it in 1981. There's an access way that goes into the basement there. Primarily, the entrance was from here in the side.
So that's what I meant. The existing entrance, or the former entrance, was from the rear of the building and not from the front.
Oh, no, you would primarily enter from the
Oh,
front.
you would? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're actually changing, sounds like the primary entrance for kids when they get dropped off in the morning is going to be from the rear, which is
If they're
different.
being dropped off by the parents. If they're
Right.
being dropped off by the buses, it will be in the front.
Okay,
or if they walk, it'll be in the front.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else have any comment?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
I think, looking at the site, that you really do have a tight lot here, and you may be trying to do too much. And in my opinion, that's manifested in the fact that I think the outside play area, I question the size of that and the adequacy of that. And did you not say that the facility would be serviced through the front door? No. You did not? Okay. Then I
No,
misunderstood you.
not through the front door. If you have a truck,
Right,
would-
any kind of service.
any kind of
that-
service
the building.
uses this roadway, but its service is over here. So this is the front door. In other words, and the service is scheduled so it's not happening the same time that kids are being dropped off.
Yeah, maybe. There's no opportunity to do that from any other spot on the site?
Now, the issue was, exactly as Mr. King, I think it was, mentioned, that
Yeah, well, I'll
the
make it
access
clear.
around Livingston, the turnings and so forth back there couldn't work. So by doing this, we're able to get, this is completely screened. You can see the planting here, so this and the kitchen is here, so this becomes service to the kitchen.
Okay, I just think you got maybe a little too much activity around the front of the building. Can you address his concerns? I mean, he's got an active business there, and how you might affect that?
Not any more than I've already tried to explain how the circulation works around the building. And I think John has talked about or Mr. Elliott has talked about the provisions, the anticipated provisions for parking. But beyond, I don't know what else I could offer.
All right, so you don't anticipate affecting his operations at all?
Only to the extent that certainly there's going to be more circulation there because
Yeah.
the school's not in use now. So I would think that the traffic through passenger vehicles on Livingston is going to be increased. In terms of buses going on Livingston, which is one of his concerns, that's not the case.
There's
And
no bus?
There's
that-
no, buses and trucks will
turn.
not be going on Livingston.
Okay.
The idea is that all that happens off of Gorham and is pulled off of Gorham so that any of that traffic is dealt with and stacked up on the site and not on Gorham.
Okay. Have you worked with historic board personnel to,
Yes,
I think there's some historical
yeah.
significance to that property, and I know they'd be very sensitive to materials and like window specifications and
Right.
things.
We met
Have you
with-
met with them? I know you mentioned that.
Yes, we did.
Okay,
And,
so you're working hand in hand with them, and,
Yeah, the only comment they had was the windows, the new windows on the new buildings and the replacements on the old ones to match the existing style.
right, right,
That was the only comment we got back from the board.
okay. Okay, and just one other question regarding curb cuts. I think the city engineer had some questions about the width, the 25-foot width or something.
Correct.
Can you just address that and what you propose to do there?
Again, that would be if the school proceed, and we'll go ahead and address that, because again, we don't know if this parking will be available, because they're gonna have to potentially
Okay.
take this property, so that would be
Later on.
part of proceeding. If they go ahead with 2 schools, we would address that. Ronnie brought that up a couple times to us, and we know that that's one of the outstanding items that we have, that if they proceed with this school in the Maury, then we'll know we need to take care of that.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the land takings, can you point out what portions of the project as shown here need to be acquired by land taking?
Primarily the property that's here at the current corner of Carter and Gorham. There's a parking lot there right now from the former Prince Spaghetti.
Right.
There was actually some understanding that someone was gonna donate that to the city. That didn't happen. So that's why that was currently in the design, and the design was moving forward, and when we looked into it further, that never happened or formalized. So that would be the primary property. There are a number of properties around the school that have taken some of the city's property. So there'll be some discussions with some of the surrounding property owners with regards to where their fences are and what have you also.
So there may be some additional lands at some point that may be included in this
Yeah,
plan,
they're not
either for
significant
parking or-
portions, but they're, either they move the fence or what have you around the building. So if you were to go by the building, some things may seem a little closer than what they are shown on here because of where the lot lines are and what have you.
If there ended up being a necessity for additional parking, is there an opportunity for acquisition of any other adjacent land?
There's actually the city owns, right near the Cardinal O'Connell School.
Yeah.
There's a significant piece of land there that's on Prince Spaghetti Way or whatever, that's behind the Cardinal O'Connell, that the city owns that already. And there's a couple other potential parcels that we would look at.
Has there been a traffic study done relative to this project, or is that to come?
No, there's been no traffic study.
The engineer also had some comments, I guess, technical questions or comments regarding the plan addressed in a memo of March 28th. I'm not sure if you've seen those.
Yes, we've seen those.
I'm not sure that they have to be specifically addressed, but these are all things that he'd want to see on the plan. And
Yeah, a number of those comments, we've received those going through the review process. He hasn't seen the final set that went out to bid or all the addendums. Majority of those, or I would think all of them, have been addressed. There is a question with regards to a sewer extension permit, and I actually spoke to Mike Stewart at Lowell Wastewater this afternoon, and he said because they're both existing schools, there's no requirement for an extension, and we're not running new sewer pipe to the school. We're using existing connections to the 2 schools.
Great. All right, I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. As I indicated earlier when you were setting up, I know we received some comments from the city departments. We received from Conservation, which was an approval. Water Utility appears to be an approval. Board of Health was an approval. You addressed the matters from the Assistant City Engineer, Mr. LeBrecq. I know Division of Planning and Development brought up a couple of questions about parking spaces, and I think you tried to answer those questions with the off-street parking. However, I didn't see any traffic comments. Did we receive any, James, or we just didn't get them on time? I don't remember seeing them in my packet, or if they were omitted in my packet. I don't recall. Do you remember if those were submitted, James, on this? I know you addressed them in your comments about some of the parking spaces. I think you had a question.
Yeah.
The applicant notes the existence of 75 parking spaces, and then his narrative comes up with a different total.
Correct. My apologies. I thought the traffic engineer's comments were in the packet. I do have those, and I tried to include whatever he mentioned into my comment letter to the board. They're relatively minor, and I did discuss some of the engineer's comments as well as my own.
Okay.
With regards, for example,
I noticed how
the
you
curb
commented
cut
on
length.
that. I was wondering if it was encompassed by the, okay.
Right. My apologies. I thought
No
they were in
problem.
there.
We understand there's a lot of paperwork, so we, just to touch on that, and then, were there any major concerns that the traffic engineer had that you recall reading?
Nothing major that hasn't already been discussed or addressed tonight.
Do you know approximately how many students you might have there, or is that still too preliminary?
500, it's designed for 520.
520.
And what do you anticipate for employees?
I think it's, I don't know the exact number.
Any? Okay. So if we get back to the
600
off-site
people.
parking, would you consider maybe having some of the employees park on the off-site parking? You know, have the employees walk instead of the visitors?
Yes, I think that was going to be the
You know,
intent.
that's what happens on a lot of our other sites, is so when people have to come pick up, drop off,
I
or
think-
go in, you know, for
If
example,
I'm
you get a
correct, the intent is that this area here will be the primary visitor parking.
Because
with
I'm
the
saying, you know,
closest access.
your visitor parking, you usually don't want to have to be furthest from your site.
Yes.
Like in other projects that we've approved, I mean, with the school, you're gonna have some kids coming a little later at school, you know, and tardy, early dismissal, and you really don't want the mom picking up a kid who's off-site, you can't even see her in the lot while she's waiting for a student at the front door. That's a concern I have, okay? Because I know that you will have students coming late, different times of days because of whether it's doctor's appointments or tardiness to come to school or left early. But I know where a lot of our sites, we have the employees, they could walk a little further instead of making the students walk, because most of the students aren't gonna obviously be driving their own cars to the site. That'd be safe to say, right?
Correct.
Okay. I had one other question I think I noted here, so, obviously, I feel that it's, you know, obviously, whenever we've had projects before us for the schools, we, try to do what we can to help the school department and the city to improve the, schools in the city. I know we're at a little bit of a disadvantage here because of the time constraints and what's going through, so we don't have the complete site plan. So usually we have the whole site plan in front of us. So I know we touched on that earlier by other board members. So one thing I would like to see is, if we did give this a favorable reply, would like to see, in the future, if you could just show us the complete parking plan in the future. I know you don't have it now, and I understand the reasons why you don't have it now, but I think obviously it's nice to us to see the big picture when we're gonna vote for something up or down. So if it was, say, if it was approved tonight with certain conditions, then I think maybe that, if one of them would be the parking, which I think has been a concern raised by most of the board members tonight, you know, if we could see those off-site, as you indicated, and some of them might be taking, so you have no answers for those now, but if we could see those at a future date, then we'd know that, what that parking would be adequate to answer some of those concerns. So I believe that's basically been the major concern that's been discussed by most of the board members tonight, and it sounds like you might be able to alleviate those concerns.
Yes, I think we'll definitely be able to provide where the parking is going to be if
And
the
I know
school
you're at a disadvantage
proceeds.
on that, but I understand why, I mean, and I know it's all contingent upon, and a lot of times we have projects before, it's just contingent upon us, where we have no control of a lot of the other outcome of the matter. But obviously, it's our responsibility to vote in favor or against the site plan, as we see as appropriate. But I think if we had those future plans, if we make it as a condition, then hopefully that would satisfy the board members, or at least warrant more recommendations by us to be considered for us to take a look at the project. Those are the only concerns I have. Thank you. Any other questions by the board members, or if not, anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve this project. As you've stated, we think it's a great project. We would like to put the condition that as the plans progress and are modified, especially concerning the property that's going to be taken and any modification of the parking, that as the plans are modified, they'd be brought back to this board for review and approval, and that the plans provide for the appropriate parking, and thirdly, that all of the engineering concerns are addressed on subsequent plans.
I'll second that motion.
Motion is made and
Mr.
seconded. Any
Chairman,
further discussion?
I would like to add one other thing, that we also, in addition to a parking plan, we have a traffic study delivered to us with suggested modifications for
I know
entering and exiting onto Livingston Street.
It's anticipated a traffic study will be done if the project moves forward, I'm presuming.
Do you know if one was considered?
No, one wasn't planned for. wasn't planned
Well,
for.
at least the traffic, actually.
But at least one thing that we don't have that would be reviewed for further consideration would be at least the traffic engineer for the city of Lowell comments, which we don't have now. I know James said he alluded to them, but anything you would have for parking or any type of traffic, I think would have to meet at least the requirement of the traffic in the city here.
So I think that would be adequate. What I'm really concerned about is, obviously, we're going to have a great influx of traffic on Livingston Street entering and exiting, and I want to make sure that we make the appropriate modifications to Gorham Street or to Livingston Street
Yeah, they're in.
so that we can,
We've discussed already in making some improvements to where Livingston meets Carter Street, so people can either exit out Carter Street or exit out through the access, that main access road that used to lead to Prince Spaghetti with some curb cuts and pulling back the curbs and stuff like that. So that's all contingent if it moves forward, but we've already had that discussion internally with
So
the school
between
department.
the traffic and the parking, they could come back for us for further review if it moves forward as indicated, that we'd get a second look at that, if that's, as requested in the motion. Is that satisfactory, Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
Okay,
That's good.
thank you. Any other conditions that you're considering that we consider? Or is that the only one you had at this time?
I think we should make the gym bigger, too, but I guess that's not going to fly.
Or the outside playground.
Yeah, I think if they had more room on the side, it'd be nice for the outside playground, the gym a little bigger, maybe jacuzzis, whatever, but that would be real nice.
Push it.
But,
No, that's good.
Mr. Fischett, any comments or concerns?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Was that seconded?
Yeah.
Next was seconded by Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. The approval is 5-0 in favor. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
briefly, can we just go through those conditions just
Sure.
very quickly, just so I make sure I have them?
Joe, do you want to read them back as you have them? And-
Sure. One is that as they move forward and modify the plans to provide for the appropriate parking, and that the modified plans be brought back to this board for review and approval. And thirdly, that the engineering concerns addressed in the engineering comments be addressed on the future plans, and whatever is going to happen for, as far as the traffic study, be reviewed by our traffic engineer for review and approval.
Thank you.
The board members feel those are the appropriate conditions? Okay. Yeah, I think that's appropriate, James. I think we're all in agreement that's what the motion was, and that's how it was seconded by Mr. Genman. And all in favor? Do you have that?
Yeah.
Any questions of us on those? Any questions in regards to the recommendation?
No, that's, thank you, I just wanted to
All right,
make
no, I just
sure
want, if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to try to clarify them now. It's easier now than later.
that- I agree. think
And I know it's tough to try to keep up, so that's why if you have any questions, always let us know, and we'll try to clarify. Okay. That public hearing is closed. We're moving on to another one shortly. While the applicants are setting up for the next project, I'm going to read the advertisement. The next matter is the site plan approval for 108 Pine Street. This is the Morby School. This is the Lowell Planning Board will review an application by Watermark Engineering and the City of Lowell School Department for site plan review for the development of a property located at 108 Pine Street. The proposal includes the construction of a new two-story elementary school building and demolition of the existing three-story brick elementary school building. Parking for the facility will consist of 73 parking spaces and 2 parking areas with access off Wilder Street and Morey Street. The proposal is located in a 124,000 square foot lot in a traditional neighborhood, single-family neighborhood, and a traditional neighborhood two-family zoning district. And this matter requires site plan approval under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please? Thank you.
Again, as I discussed, this school and the Saras are somewhat tied together in how they proceed. The Maury School here has the same things with regards to the bidding. They're both under the same timeline, and a decision will be made once the bid prices come in and the city council takes a vote of whether both schools proceed. It is more than likely that if only one school is to proceed, it would be the Maury. The Maury School, I think one of the primary issues that we wanted to address was a lot of people had a concern with the park that is there now and what will happen to it. It is going to be taken during construction for a laydown area and to replace the parking of where people are currently parking for the existing school. The existing school is going to remain active during the construction of the new school. And then once the new school is complete and can be used, everyone will move into the new school, and then the existing school will be removed and torn down and replaced with landscaping. The park, design of the park, again, just like the parking at the Saras, has not been completed because that is an issue that will be dealt with, a design with the Parks Department of how that will be renovated. But that park will be restored to existing conditions or better based on us proceeding with one of the schools. We already have a proposal in place to do the design of that school. We just haven't proceeded till we make these decisions. And I think if this school does proceed, one of the things we intend to do once we know that will be to meet with the current teachers. We've been meeting with the principal, but the current teachers, the students, and the parents that will be dealing with this, to give them more information with regards to the timeline and everything once we sign a contract with the general contractor and keep them in the loop with regards to what's going on. At this point in time, we haven't done that because we don't know what schools, when they're proceeding or when the timeline's going to happen, who's the contractor going to be. We do have a phasing schedule of how certain things will happen in the contract, but until it's awarded, we have not had that meeting because we don't know the specifics of the timeline. With that, I'll hand it over to Dave to just go more into the architectural.
Thanks, John. This is a totally different problem than the Sapasera School from an architectural standpoint, in that we were taking down an existing building, but as Mr. Haley mentioned, we needed to keep it operational while the new building was constructed. So the footprint of the existing building is essentially here, and so the siting of this building is driven almost entirely by the fact that we had to build around the existing building, okay, in order to maintain it in use. So if you were to say, would it be nicer if the building were over here, it might be, but the condition of keeping the existing building in operation made that impossible. Okay, so that's, from a site planning standpoint, that's one of the key issues that drove the siting of the building. With that in mind, though, the existing building is, I think, on the park side, is about 3 stories high, or maybe even 3.5 stories high when you consider the retaining wall that's on that side. And yet, most of the houses in the surrounding community are a couple stories, a couple-story residences, and we're designing a building for young kids. Here we had, because we were taking, although we were limited by where the building had to be sited, at least here we had more flexibility in terms of the height of the building than we did on the other side. So what we tried to do was to keep the building as a 2-story building so that its height would be far lower than the existing building, because we're 2 stories up from the park side and only 1 story up from the Pine Street side. So where now you look at the existing Maury School, you see a 2-story brick, kind of out of scale, I think, out of scale with the community. From the Pine Street side, which is the side the board is looking from, this will now feel really like a rural school in many ways, with a large green space in front of it, which you can see here, and the parking pushed towards Pine Street, so that the building, our hope is that the new school building will feel as though it's really sitting in a park. There's park space on the Pine Street side, which is this large lawn, and then there's the existing park over here, and it's a modestly scaled building. We also tried on the end walls, I'll call these each side facing onto Maury and thank you, I wish I memorized that, and Wilder, is that we have tried to articulate the end of the building so that it is a similar width to the houses, so that this becomes, there's ins and outs here, and there's notches over here to try to break down the scale of the building along those streets. So it's, again, more in keeping with the scale of the neighborhood, both in its height and in the small pieces that face the street. I mean, we're putting a 67,000 square foot building in a community that, you know, your houses are, you know, 2,500 or 3,000 square feet or whatever. So those are just generally some of the architectural devices that we use to try to, as much as possible, fit the building in. The exterior of the building will be clad in a combination of brick and concrete block. I know that that's a combination that's used on many of your school buildings throughout the town. We weren't restricted by having it be all brick to match an historic building. We're also going to be using some metal panels. The brick and block and the panels will, our hope is to have a pattern that's similar, shadow patterns that are similar to clapboard, and it'll be a lighter color brick, like the light color of the clapboards of the surrounding houses. So again, the idea is to try to have it be its color and texture as much as possible similar to the surrounding neighborhood. In terms of the site circulation, again, working with the city and the school, tried to separate both the bus drop-off and the parent drop-off. So there's a new curb cut off of Pine Street, and in working with both the city and the school, they did not want a curb cut. They did not want to come in off of Morey. I guess it's very difficult to turn from Pine onto Morey. So we're creating a new curb cut here and a bus loop, a dedicated bus loop here at the front of the school for bus drop-off. Parent drop-off will be along Morey Street, and similar to Sapaceris, there's an entry facing onto the park from the school here. And I use this, again, a similar diagram. This is the same orientation, that the park is here and Pine Street is here. The buses drop off at this end of the school, and parents can drop off here, and students can walk in at this end, so they're coming in to a common lobby, but they're dropped off at opposite ends of the site so that the traffic impacts are mitigated as much as possible. Also for special needs would be dropped off here as well, which you can see, well, you can't see, but there's a covered canopy to get from this drop-off into the school building under cover. There's also a covered canopy at the front of the school so that when buses drop off at the front of the school, it's relatively close, and there's a covered canopy into the entry of the school here. So a similar strategy about trying to separate the vehicular circulation. In terms of the interior planning, the main level, and the main level is, I'll say, the Pine Street level, has the cafeteria, which is overlooking this green space, and the cafeteria also has a platform on it, as does the cafeteria in Sapaceris. That becomes the performance space, so if there's, and fortunately here we have a lot more space for parking, so I think there's 73 parking spaces. Easy to park here and then go into the lobby and directly into the cafeteria, which is looking into the park. Administration is right by the, like Sapaceris, right by the main entry. The gymnasium is actually in the center of the building with classrooms flanking either side, which you can see in the orange at that main level. You go down one level, in the stair that's on that lobby that I talked about before, and there's the remaining classrooms, kindergarten with a small play court off of the kindergartens, and then the entry and looking onto the park. So it becomes a building which is really only a two-story building for the kids. They don't have to move around too much. The gymnasium, as I said, is in the center. There would be direct access off of Wilder to the gymnasium. So again, even though it's internal, you could have evening events in the gym, and you don't have to go through the whole rest of the school. We did a layout like this up in Salem for the Carleton School, and it worked very well for them up there. I think that's generally it. Again, we've tried to keep the building low scale. It's a big footprint, But the reason it's a big footprint is because it's a lower scale. We try to be at the scale of the houses in the neighborhood. And I think the only other thing would be the planting, which I think you saw. And because I know there's some, right now there's some relatively mature trees out here, and we're looking at replacing that area with some pretty significant planting, really to, in some ways, continue the pattern of street trees here, but also to create a planted buffer between the parking, the surrounding areas, and also the parking in the school.
We'll get to you, sir, 1 second, okay? Anything else, sir?
No, that's it.
Anybody else on behalf of the applicant, want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public? Okay. At this point in time, I'll turn the public hearing over to the public. At this point in time, anybody here like to speak in favor? Anybody wants to speak in favor, just come to the microphone, please, and state your name and address, please.
I'm obviously in favor of the school itself.
Can we just have your name, please, sir?
My name is Esan Sarah. I live on Maury Street. One, the school looks awfully close to Maury Street, to the edge, like the current teacher parking. So it's definitely, and I know you said you're going to try to cut down the view, but it's going to be awfully close to the houses. Also, I'd like to know where the service entrance is for the dumpster and those kinds of things, the oil that comes into the school and so on, like it does currently. And then how many classrooms are actually in the school, and is the teacher parking going to accommodate all the spaces that you provided there?
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I live in the neighborhood, and I'm in favor of this project. I think this will be this is a good project. I'm glad to see that there's going to be some open space outside remaining, and maybe he can go into more detail as to the open space that is going to remain or be increased. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm in favor. My name is Sandra Shane. Oops. I live on Maury Street, and we're in favor of the school, but we have some really big concerns as to how close the building's going to be to our houses. We're on the side where the single-family house is, while the side is all the double multi-family houses. And in the original plans in 2001, when they were going to build it, we had the cafeteria, the service entrance, and the dumpster, which was going to be about 10 feet away from the front of our houses. That road is not very wide, and the teachers, so they're coming all the way to the edge of that street. The building's going to be really close to the front of our house.
Okay.
And we're really concerned where people are going to park while they're building it, because right now they park right there. So there's going to be no parking during the building, which is going to take 18 months. Right now, parking's horrible for the parents and the teachers. So where are people going to park during the construction? Afterwards, the old school's gone. Yeah, there's going to be nice new parking, but in the meantime, where are we going to park?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Donna Cox, 41 Maury Street. I'm in favor of the school, but I do have some questions. The question foremost on my mind is during school hours right now, Maury Street is one way, even for us, the residents. But the teachers exit the parking lot right now from the school coming down. Will that continue? Will it continue to be a one-way street, or is it going to be a two-way street now that you'll be using Maury Street as one of the exits? My other question is, I can't really determine, maybe you can help me. Is the end of what I'm looking at right now, the end of that building, is that the top of Pine Street? So all that open area will be parking eventually when the school comes down? So where is the park that exists right now? Okay, so we're not seeing the park tonight, and we're not seeing what eventually may happen?
The park goes about to my...
Right, right. Do we have plans for the park?
If the park is not part of the site plan and it's not part of the school department project, then it would not be before us, no.
Okay, so there's obviously no parking on the park as it exists right now.
That's correct, but we will address that question.
Okay.
I will.
Last question.
Sure.
Heavy equipment that is going to use the park during, how long will the project take? A year and a half, 2 years? The heavy equipment that's going to be laid down and materials that will be laid down in the park area, will that prohibit the use of the park as it is right now?
We'll ask that question for you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Yes, sir. My name's Kevin Cushane, 31 Maury Street. I'm in favor of it, definitely. We've been living there 16, 17 years, and we've seen it go from a fairly nice school to what it looks like now. We have a major problem with vandalism. We have a major problem with gang members hanging out, dealing their drugs, plain sight, okay? So what I want to know is, what are they going to do with the rest of the property where the park is and the basketball court is now? Are they going to put up another basketball court that's just going to be vandalized, defaced?
We'll ask that question.
What are we going to
Yeah.
do with the rest, where the basketball court is coming down the street?
Okay. Yep.
Right, what are they going to do with that?
We'll address that, sir.
Oh, nobody knows yet? No.
We will address it.
Okay.
Yep, that question will be answered before you leave tonight.
Okay.
Okay? Yes, anybody else like to speak in favor?
James Piazza's Wilder Street. There's one house I don't see there. I'm trying to figure out 493, 495 Wilder Street, which looks like the upper right-hand corner of your box there, and it looks like the school is right on top of the house. I'd like to know the distance between basically the house, handicapped woman's bedroom right there versus the school. We hear 2 stories. How high is 2 stories? Will it block her sun? Will it block the breeze? Will it block the use of enjoyment of her home? And also, are there going to be windows on that side? It looks like they are. So you're going to have a window facing out right onto what looks like about 6 feet away. Her bathroom, her bedroom, her home of 50 years where she's been paying taxes here and never asked the city for nothing. I'd just like to know the distance between the house there, if that is even taken into consideration, because I don't see her house there. I see the houses across the street. I see the houses on the other side of Pine Street, 100 yards away from the school. I don't see her house.
Yeah.
She fell down.
We have it on our plans here, the more detailed plans, instead of the ones that we can't see from here either. I can't see those, but the ones that were submitted to us, that we had to study previous to tonight's meeting, they are on that plans here, and we do have comments to address your question. If they are within 6 feet of that project, they do need a variance. It has to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They cannot build a project within 6 feet of that home. They can't do
So
that.
6 feet is all that they have to give her?
No, I don't know. You mentioned 6 feet, not them.
Okay.
So I'm saying if it is too close to that house, what they're gonna need is a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have certain rules and regulations that they have to satisfy with us under the site plan regulation. Under site plan regulation, we consider front yard, rear yard, and both side yards. If it doesn't meet those concerns, most of the time, this board's unfavorable. If it needs a variance, that would have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. We do have comments and questions in our packet that we received tonight addressing that question. And that's one of the questions that this board is gonna make tonight before this meeting is over.
Will we be kept informed of the zoning board?
We're gonna answer it right after you're done. We're gonna ask them while you're still here.
Thank you.
Okay. Everything, all the questions we do it right here at the public hearing. Yes,
My
sir.
name's Rachel McDaniel. I live at 5 Light Ave on the corner of Maury and Light. I also have the concerns about the park.
Okay.
You are building a multi-million-dollar school there, which is going to be gorgeous, no question about it. The problem is, you have one of the dirtiest, most disgusting parks in Lowell. If you ask any park recreation cleaner, he would tell you it is the dirtiest park to pick up every week. The main concern is, you're going to spend all these millions of dollars, and it's going to look like a dump next to it. I do believe this park needs to be addressed a lot more than just, it's going to sit next to a park and we're going to redo it.
Okay. Let me ask the school department now. Is the park owned by the school department? No. Okay. So it's owned by the park department. Therefore, that responsibility is the city park department, not the school department. So therefore, for this site plan tonight, the reason why that is not on their plan, because that is not their project, that is not their land, and they're not building on that project. So that park as it stays now is the responsibility of the city park department, correct?
I understand that, but shouldn't the council address this at the same time, since they are building a brand-new unit there next to something that's gonna look like a dump week after week?
Obviously, when this goes before the council, if they want to address that, we have no control of what the council addresses. We have control here in this board only in regards to the site plan, which is the property they own on this project. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Can I just make a comment, because I hear
Sure.
everyone bringing it up? The intent with the park is the park's going to be completely taken over during construction. It's going to be the new park, the temporary parking for the workers, the teachers, in the laydown area where the trailers would be for construction.
That's what you stated at the start of your presentation. I get
Correct.
that. Right.
Afterwards, that park is going to be replaced in concert with the Parks Department, and it's going to become more of a elementary type park. It's not going to be.
So you really won't need basketball courts there if you have a new
That will come from
gymnasium.
the Parks Department. That's not something
So
we
what
can
the question is that's controlled by the park department, so these gentlemen here in the school department have no control of that site.
Okay, I just assumed
Yeah.
they were working together on this.
Well,
stuff.
hopefully, when the city looks at it, as you indicated by council or somebody else, they can look at the bigger picture. Unfortunately, we can only address the site plan that's this piece of property. But I understand your concern about that park.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, even just the other day, if you were up there, most of it was covered underwater with the big orange cone there.
It's what?
When you were there the other day, it was covered underwater with the big orange cone there.
Yeah.
Earlier in the week, right.
decide to proceed with the Parks Department, and I assume it's a public meeting, so you can come
Oh, that will be
address at
public
that
too?
point in
Okay,
time,
great.
so.
See, I think basically when you have the bigger picture before the council, they can address the other issue of the park, they can address the issue of the school. Unfortunately, this board doesn't have the purview of the park, because that's not in front of us as the site plan. But I do know a lot of questions would be what would happen to that park once this
Yeah,
met.
there is a lot of
Right,
questions on
I
it
understand
in-
that.
in the neighborhood.
And what would happen is, I know how that park is maintained is not up to the school department, but up to the park department.
Right. Oh, it's
Yeah.
cleaned every week. There's
Yeah.
no problem
I
there.
know, yeah.
It's just 2 days
Yeah.
later,
I-
it's a dump again. And
Yeah,
why, you know,
I go
why
by there
have
quite
an
a bit, I
extra
know.
gorgeous
Yeah.
school?
Okay, I understand your concerns, okay. Thank you, sir. And, can I just wait a minute to see if anybody else wants to speak, then I'll get back to you, okay, if you don't mind? Anybody else here like to speak in? We're still in favor, okay. Anybody else here want to speak in favor? In favor? Okay. What I'm going to do, ma'am, we'll take your question now, then I'll turn it over to anybody else want to speak in opposition.
I was just going to add that the school does use the park, so they use it all the time for gym. We live right there. The children go into the basketball court and the park for gymnasium. There's going to be no space for gymnasium during construction. Where are the kids going to have gym for 18 months?
Okay, we'll ask that question, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. At this point in time, anybody else want to speak in favor? In favor? In favor, hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody here like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to the board members. Anybody who wants to go first, or not, I'll ask some questions. Okay, Mr. Gentleman, we'll start with you.
Sure, I'll go.
Thank you.
I'm loaded with all kinds of good questions now because you guys brought them all down. But I actually do want to compliment the neighbors for coming out tonight. I think that's what's important in making sure this meets your needs, is so you guys stay involved. And I also like the fact that everybody spoke in favor, regardless of their concerns, which shows that there's a cooperative spirit here, and everybody wants this school to happen and be successful, which is great. So let's start with the question about what happens during construction with regard to parking and play area for the students and faculty.
The front area here is not going to be parking lot until the demolition point. So the kids' play area, when we take the park, will be primarily the front area that is fenced in, that they do periodically do. I mean, I see them playing kickball out there and what have you. So that area there is going to be completely available, not touched during construction. So with the school in that area is going to remain exactly the way it is during construction. Once the school's completed, then the area here will be resolved and this area here will be demoed and the parking lot will be in place. But this part of the phasing will be, this here happens after the school is done.
Okay. So that leads to the question, where are people going to park during
The
this?
whole entire park is going to become a parking lot and laydown
Okay.
area, the current park. So for the duration of the project, the park is not going to be available.
I see. Okay, so the park is going to be used for during the construction, 18 months of construction, the park that exists there now is going to be used for parking and for heavy equipment, that sort of thing during
Correct.
construction.
And again, we've had discussions with Tom Belgrade, but we have not met in front of the Parks Department yet because we need to see which ones are proceeding, and then we're going to resolve the whole park area and what the school department will do to bring it to a certain standard, and then what the Parks Department will do after we are complete.
Okay, I see. And, with regard to the park, so I understand all the comments that people said, and they're good comments about the state of the park right now. But I really think this is an opportunity, right? Because you're right, the chairman's right, our purview is only the site of the school. But let's face it, we're one city, we're a school department, we're a city part. We need to work in concert once in a while. And I think this is an opportunity to change that park, right? Once the construction is done, the city is going to rebuild that park into something that young people can use again. I don't know what steps should be taken, but certainly there are steps that we as a city can take to make that safer, to keep that cleaner. And so I think this is an opportunity, and the residents need to stay involved in making sure that park becomes something that we can all be happy with and proud of going forward, and that the students will be able to use for recreation in years to come. So I think, I'm looking at it that way. We have an opportunity now to change that park, rip it down, make it better for the future. So hopefully we can do that.
They're going to be grading the site and bringing in some fill and everything to make it parking and removing all the equipment and everything, so the equipment that's somewhat there.
Excuse me, sir?
Yep.
Let the board go here. If you have any questions, I'll pick it up later, okay? And since they're having a dialogue, go ahead, Mr. Gentleman.
So let's talk about how many classrooms do we know in this?
Same numbers, sir, so it's 20.
20 classrooms. So by right, we only need 30 parking spots?
Yeah, 30
something like
parking
that?
spots.
That seems a little light, but you say you have 73? 73 spots
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
site?
it's 73, yep.
James, the planning department had raised a couple of issues about the number of spots. Do we think 73 is not an adequate number of spots for this site? On your narrative, it raises some issues about parking. Is 73 not adequate?
Yes, actually, I believe what I was trying to say is I was counting the spots, and then what was referenced in one area of the narrative that was provided by the applicant, and then what's referenced on the plans, there's a little discrepancy. And so I just wanted that to be clarified so that we have it on record as to exactly, are there 75 or are there 73? And then just to ensure that that does comply with the zoning, which, as we noted from when we were discussing the new Butler School, and as noted in the memo itself, there's 3 parking spaces needed for every 2 instructional rooms. And without knowing the final details of the building before, now we have that. I just wasn't sure whether or not 73 would actually be sufficient. 20 instructional rooms comes out to roughly, 30 spaces?
30 spots, yeah.
Yeah.
Which seems really inadequate for a school when you consider, visitors and that sort of thing. Do we know how many parking spots are in the school now?
Oh, I don't know how many, because they park all over.
There's no parking now.
Yeah.
There's no marked
Right.
parking, so
And
it's
just
going to
to
be an
clar-
improvement over the current situation from a parking standpoint, very likely.
Just to clarify, the number is it's 73. That's the number that's indicated on the plans that were
Okay.
submitted to the board, so it should be 73 spaces.
Okay.
On the 73, if I may, I think in your narrative then, is this correct that you're going to have, faculty will be 56, the secondary parking will be 15, and the 2 for the handicap? That's your 73. That's what you gave us in your narrative on the parking and lighting?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's based on the way the site plan works, so that there's 15 and 2 over here, and then the remainder is over here.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
And I was just going to ask if you could talk a little bit about the house that the gentleman was questioning about. It's 493, I believe it is, Wilder Street.
Yeah.
What's the setback from that? Are we taking that into consideration?
Well, as I mentioned before, one of the real, and this doesn't solve the problem, but the constraint of building around the existing building was a difficult one. This line of the building is on the permitted setback within that district, which is 10 feet from the lot line. So the distance between the school building and that house is going to be 10 feet plus whatever the distance is from their lot line to their house. And we have, unfortunately, and I apologize, this was by no means happened on purpose. We had a model piece of the house here. We have tried to, and here's an elevation of that side of the building, is that we have tried to keep that area of the building with a solid wall, so there won't be views of classrooms into that house. And also on that side of the building, really to mitigate the southern sun, are awnings that also will reduce the direct views out. So that's what it is. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay. How high is the building?
Oh, how high is the building? It is 12'8" plus 12'8", about 25 and a half feet high to this edge, to the top edge.
Did you indicate that it would be lower than what's existing now?
Oh, it's substantially lower than what's
That's what I
existing
thought you
now.
said at the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it also is much closer to
Closer
the
to the
house.
house,
I mean,
right.
so it's,
Okay.
you're closer, but you're lower, to be honest, yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. Excuse me, sir. We'll do the board's turn. We'll get back to you. Everybody has a chance to speak. It's our turn now. Thank you. Steve, go ahead.
So the other question that was raised, that we're going to continue to have Maury Street be one-way during the, we're not going to change the traffic flow on Maury Street or anything like that?
The idea was, and I'm not sure if this is resolved, maybe you know, is that the drop-off would, the circulation for the drop-off in the morning for parents would be going in that direction, because if you're going to drop off on the passenger side. And there was discussion with the city about whether to make that one-way or two-way, and whether it would be one-way during parts of the day. And to be honest, I'm not sure how that was finally resolved.
I think if they're going to change any street in the, from one-way to two-way, it has to be approved by the city council.
Right.
We don't have control of that.
Right.
So the way it is now, it would maintain unless the council changed it. Am I correct on that, James? I'm pretty sure. Doesn't it, I mean, the city council controls,
Correct. Typically,
like they did on the other streets that were doing up by Hamilton Project.
Correct. Typically, what happens is if
Okay.
if it's something that the neighbors want to bring up, the council can then refer it to a study, which is typically handled by our transportation engineer internally, which incorporates a discussion with the neighbors themselves, as well as just a general look at the roadway and the best traffic pattern for the area. That goes back to the city council. City council ultimately votes on it and has to make the final decision. And that's typically the process.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
So that
Go
really
ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
answers all my questions. The only other concern I had is, are we going to have some kind of a process where we continue to keep the neighborhood apprised of what's going on?
Yes, that's what I
at the
was
school?
saying.
Go ahead.
Especially with this school being so active and the teachers there, and I mean the students and everything during construction, the whole process, I'm not sure, but I'm sure we're going to, I can guarantee you, we'll have some sort of regular scheduled meetings to inform the neighborhood, in particular the students and the parents, of any activity that's going on there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you could please go through the drop-off area again, and how that will flow.
Sure.
With people will enter from.
This is Maury Street,
Yep.
the bottom of the sheet here, with Pine here and Wilder here. And for the buses coming from either direction of the city would turn off of Pine into this, and that's why this is cut so broadly, because of this acute angle. Buses would come in here and then out Wilder. Cars I believe, would come this way and drop off here off of Maury, and there's an entry, a covered entry here that goes into the building from this end. Inside the building is a common lobby in yellow, so that the buses drop off here. This dash thing is indicating a canopy. So the buses drop off here. Kids from buses enter a common lobby here. From a level down, kids are dropped off here. They come in here and up a set of stairs, and they arrive in the same location as the kids that get dropped off by the bus.
Okay. What is the approximate, if you could go to the other
Site plan?
drawing, the site plan you have.
Yep.
What is the distance, how many buses will that accommodate when you pull off? Because your drop-off is pretty close to Pine Street where that bends. I'm just...
Yeah, this is to scale for a bus. So we're showing at least 5 buses that could be accommodated off of Pine Street.
When that pulls off, okay. Yeah. And then, is there any precautions? What is going to be the drop-off during construction phase? Is it not going to be affected just from a safety perspective?
Yeah, I think Watermark, working with the contractor, and how that circulation works is going to have to be, carefully worked through with the contractor in terms of making sure that construction vehicles are separated from school vehicles. I can't say that we have a plan here before you to show exactly how that's going to work, but certainly it's going to be a cooperative effort to keep that traffic separate.
Now, where there are neighbors all around here, I'm just curious, dumpster pickup, where is that going to be? Is there going to be any dumpsters on this site?
Yes, there's a dumpster, and which is off of Maury. It's right here.
So that's going to be close to the street. That's going to be very close to the street.
Very close to the street.
Yep. Ma'am, we'll get to that, please. Thank you.
Just verify. Currently, the buses are dropped off on Pine Street, so during construction, that's going to remain.
Won't be affected, okay.
Our whole intent is to keep that front area completely separate from construction. That was the whole plan of why we did it that way.
Okay.
The only issue would be the teachers that would be parking here, or any students that came in walking from that area.
On that dumpster, if you could give us, what is the distance from that from the street, and what is the screening that's being proposed for that, if any?
I think the setback from the street here, I believe, is 25 feet, but the dumpster is within the setback. So the edge of the dumpster to the curb line of the street is probably about 10 feet. There is the dumpster has a fence around it, so it's within an enclosure, and that enclosure could be screened.
Mm-hmm. Did you try locating that? Well, it's kind of tough. Did you try locating that anywhere else on the site, or?
Primarily, they do the cafeteria and
Sure, practical matter. No. Also, I could comment, I like the landscaping for the parking, and I would hope you don't look to modify the plan. I like the idea of having the island in the middle with the trees, and those are going to be plantings that they're not just showing on the drawing. That's what you're proposing to do.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be important, so it doesn't look like a parking lot to a supermarket. Or,
that's why they're there, exactly. Yeah.
And obviously, I sensitive to the height of buildings. I can point to a number of examples throughout the city where that really affects the character of a neighborhood and affects the neighborhood. So I appreciate the sensitivity to that, also recognizing the fact that you are hugging the property line, and, at scale, that is an issue. But
well, we saw, just to get at that question, because I know it was raised, is that the street, and this is a pretty accurate representation of the houses, and remarkably, the houses create a pretty strong street line in terms of they come relatively close to the street. And yes, they're separate houses, but if you look at them obliquely, they create a pretty strong wall. Our sense was to create a similar pattern on the other side, because the other houses, this is in line with the other houses that are on this street. The idea being that it would continue that pattern. I mean, for what it's worth, that was our intent.
I have no further.
Thank you. Rich, any questions?
Yeah, I have a few. On the traffic engineer's report, on these review forms that go out, he indicated that 3 handicap accessible spaces would be required, and he had a suggestion as to a location. Did I not hear you say you had 2 on the plan?
We show 2, but a third can easily be added.
Yeah, there's no problem adding
Yeah.
a third. All right.
Yeah. It's simply a matter of striping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we comply, that's all.
Yeah.
The dumpster that Mr. Frechette brought up, that is, in my opinion, a little bit of an odd location for that. And if it has to be located there, you should put a barrier or something so you can't even see it, and not a chain link. I know there's an ordinance to enclose those things, but if you could hide it, that would be a thing to do, or relocate it. Which leads me to another question: is there a service entrance to the school for, you know,
For paper products?
whatever, supplies, cafeteria stuff, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the dumpster is driven by the kitchen location, but that, and for service of paper products, which I think happens not frequently, it's the beginning of the year, end of the year, more so, could happen off of Wilder Street, because this is at grade with storage at the lowest level of the building. So in other words, there is not a service entry where all of the deliveries are coming in here.
Gee, you know, I really think there should be something to accommodate that, rather than, you're talking about doing it off the street. Yeah, you're in a residential neighborhood, I really think it should be on site.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make a comment about the park. You know, I think Mr. Gendron is right. There's an opportunity here to get the neighborhood a really good park, and I would just encourage the neighbors to keep speaking up, talk to your city councilor, and just, you know, let it be known that that's what you want. It's an important part of the neighborhood, and I think I've heard that the school utilizes it as well, so it's an important aspect here to give the kids a good place to play. That's all.
Thank you. Joe, questions, concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my colleagues touched on most of the questions, but just to follow up on a couple of points, I agree 100% with the dumpster. That's probably one of the worst things that the neighbors need to look at, so we have to be really sensitive to that. And if it can be either relocated or screened in such a way as to cut down the visual effect there, because what happens is they may look okay when they're first installed, but quickly deteriorate badly, and they look pretty badly. So I think we need to be sensitive to their needs. With regard to that property at 493 Wilder, I think you mentioned that you're maintaining the setback at 10 feet, which is the minimum setback as far as the building is concerned. As I look at the plan and the way the house is located on the plan, the distance from the lot line to their house is not noted. Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. It looks like it's less than 10 feet, just from what I see on the plan.
Yeah, it does look that way.
The existing house.
Yeah, it looks like it's less than 10 feet.
All right.
I agree with that.
The plan indicates, if I'm reading it right, an 8-foot fence from the face of the building?
Yes.
Is that along the, between the lot line and the house there? Is that what's going to be installed?
It would be 2 feet in from the
2 feet
lot
in.
line, 2 feet in from the school lot line.
Okay.
So you've got the fence is not on the lot line, it's 2 feet in from the lot line.
Okay. And how wide is the curb cut to access the property? Do you need a variance for that, do you know?
This here?
Yeah. So you need to get a variance for the width of the curb cut?
For this wider one here.
All right, thank you. No other comments?
Okay, I'm just going to pick up where some of the other members touched. You said for service entrance, you have paper products, but you have a cafeteria at the school, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to be bringing food in, right?
Right.
So where would the food
The food comes in here.
Okay, yeah, but where's it dropped off?
Here. It's dropped off here. The service to the kitchen is here.
Street.
Yep, I'm very familiar with the site. I know the site very well. I went to school there. I went to kindergarten there. I'm not gonna tell you what year it was. I know that school very, very well. Yeah, I mean, because I think you're better off, seriously, you know, putting the service entrance back further on your property and putting the dumpster back further. You know, if you can put it back towards your green strip in the middle of the school somewhere.
Here?
No, back, even to the further back, you know.
Well,
I mean, I'm taking it away from the street. I'm taking it way off the street.
You gotta get it out. Doesn't belong there.
No, you mean here?
No, not yet. No, sorry, ma'am. Nope. I think by your building, if you could put it back more in the middle of the lot, okay. You have,
This way?
Nope. Go up, right there. You have all that green right there, right?
Somewhere in
Here?
Okay, right there, yeah. If you could come down a little further, see what that white is, right? What's that right there?
That's the entry to the school.
The entry to the school.
That's the canopy?
That's the canopy.
Okay. I mean, if you could put either the drop-off or, yeah, I mean, up in the white, if you could bring it off-site more.
That's better, yeah.
Well,
If you get it further
yeah,
off
you
the
could do
street-
that. I mean, that's a good, I mean, that's somewhat in the front this way, but you could come through the cafeteria to
Because I think, obviously, you know, your service entrance should be more on your site and less to affect the traffic and the neighbors on that side street. I think the same thing is, if you're gonna be doing your service entrance, it does make sense to put your dumpster near the service entrance, because that's where your traffic is gonna be in regards to, excuse me, the people bringing things in and out of the school. But I think, really, the dumpster shouldn't be that close to the street. I mean, most of the projects we approve, we try to get them away so they're not visible by the street. We know it has to be maintained, it has to be screened in. As other board members said, it's a concern. I think it's a minor adjustment to your plan, I really do. I don't think it's something that's gonna make or break your project. I just think that board comments here is, you know, put it in a better location. I think by a second look, I'm sure if you gave it some time, you could get it off the street and put it closer to the service entrance, so you don't have those service trucks there, as well as your dumpster there.
Okay.
You know, more into the middle of your site.
Okay.
You know, I don't think you're gonna have a lot of service vehicles coming on and off your site, so I don't think it's gonna be a big issue for you there. But if you can pull it away from the site, I think it would be a lot nicer, pleasant site for the whole neighborhood and everybody else. I mean, and, you know, I know it's gonna be screened, but I think if you pull it in, it would make the site a lot nicer, I really do.
Okay.
I think we tried to answer most of the questions the residents raised. I know the question, the service entrance, the dumpster, we've hit on quite a bit. I believe one of the other questions was, how many classrooms are you gonna have? I think this young lady mentioned that, and I said I would get back to that. What's your total
This
number of
is the
classrooms?
same, it's the same number and occupancy as Sapacera, so it's 520 students.
But I mean, how many number of the classrooms? How many total
Yeah,
classrooms?
16 general classrooms.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's 4 kindergarten and 1 pre-K. It's 21, actually.
Okay. So getting back to the distance on the top right-hand side, as Mr. Claremont said, if that doesn't meet the required setback, then obviously you need a variance on that.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, that's something that goes before the zoning board of appeals. I mean, I know you said you don't have the total number of it right now, but we do have a side yard requirement, whichever way you look at it, and if it doesn't meet that requirement, that will have to go before the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
You indicate it's going to be a two-story building, correct?
Yes.
Right. So it's going, I know now how you look at it, it starts and it slopes down, it starts because no matter.
It's going to look like
tilts as the street
it's
goes down.
it's a one-story, it's going
Right.
to look like a one-story building on the Pine Street side and a two-story building on the.
As it slopes down to its.
Right, because there's a one-story grade change across
Right.
the site.
Yes, ma'am, you had a question for me? Yep, I'm getting to that one. It's right here on my list. Okay. A couple of other questions you already answered about where the construction is going to be during, most of that's going to be towards the park area, then you're going to fix the park area up after. And there's this young lady question, what's the distance between from the setback, I'm sorry.
Well, the setback from the building to the street is 25 feet.
Okay,
Then
from
you
the
have
building to the street, right, okay.
Yeah, and then you have the width of the street.
Right, I know, yep.
Okay, and then whatever the distance is from the street to the house. So it's You know,
So-
it's in the neighborhood of
Right.
40, 50 feet.
So what they have to satisfy us is what their setback is from the street. Yeah. Well, what he has to do on the regulation, unless he gets a variance, is he has to be 25 feet back from the street. That's what the zoning code of the city of Lowell, that's been approved by the city council requires. And that's what we have to enforce as the planning board. Okay. So his setback requirement has to be from the street. Just like if anybody else built a house in the neighborhood, they'd have to be so many feet back from the street as well.
Right.
Okay. Before I finish my questions, is any, yes, sir, I'll take one of your questions.
Yes, sir. From what
Address
I've
it to me
heard-
if you would, please, okay, and I'll address it to them.
From what I heard, he's increasing the traffic on Maury Street. Buses and parents, I understood, were coming in off of onto Maury Street and then
The main
turning
thing, he's
onto
gonna try to
Pine.
bring it in Pine Street.
Well,
Right. As it is now.
No, that's, the buses come off of Pine.
Right.
Through the site, and then they exit the site for this, so it's going to affect whatever these, if you're in one of those houses, would affect those houses, but, so the buses would come off and go, you know, go back onto Pine this way. So there's a length of Maury that the buses will go on that they don't go on now, because right now they drop off on Pine.
They drop off on Pine,
Yeah,
correct.
and that was a, I'm sorry, Wilder, I'm sorry, I've got these mixed up. Wilder, you come on, they don't, the buses don't go on Maury at all, they go on Wilder. Right.
Okay, and
So-
one other question related to the buses pulling in off of Pine Street. Because there's a building right there on the corner, right where the fire hydrant is and everything, are they gonna have clear view so other traffic coming off of Pine's not gonna interfere with any?
Yeah, that's,
turning?
that building is down here. And one of the reasons that we had originally had a scheme very early on where the buses would come on to Maury and go through the site here. And because of that exact reason you're talking about, that sight line and also the turning radius here, there was a curb cut that was added farther up Pine Street with a wider curb cut in order to allow the buses to turn in and allow them to turn in with the right sight distance.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, you have a question of me, not to them, okay? If you would. To me, please. It's my turn. So you have to ask me, then I ask them. Okay, so you can't ask them. You want to ask me, I'll address it. Go ahead, you can ask me.
Well, I can ask you.
Okay, yep, go ahead, yep.
Three little things I want to ask you.
Sure.
The security for the machinery at night when nobody's around.
Okay.
Okay, speed bumps all the way around the school.
Yep.
And I want to know about the fence around the school. Is it going to be all the way around, or? And the same thing with the park. I mean, I know you don't really have much
Yeah,
to
we-
do with
we
the
can't speak to the
park,
park.
but it's a big factor to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different board, and we have no control of them, and they have no control of us. So, all right.
Well, next time we got 80 guys all dressed in black having a gang war out in the parking lot at 9 o'clock at night, then
Now,
you'll know our
now, that's
concern.
another department, that's the police department.
I know.
So
And we call them and nothing
Yeah,
happens, I know.
You're not the only neighborhood, believe me, okay?
Well, I'll tell you.
So,
I've never seen 100.
I have. Are there proposed speed bumps for the site? I know the traffic engineer had no concerns about that. Do people
No,
concerned
there's
that?
no
Okay.
speed bumps proposed.
And what part of the project would be fenced?
Uh,
if any?
the-
I know you have a lot of fencing there now, but I know it's going to be completely different.
We do, and the entire property is not fenced. There's fence in some areas, but there's opening between the fences in areas. For example, where the, here where the roadway comes in. The fence has been, there's
On Pine, right?
fencing here and here. Fences have been located to prevent traffic across the site, but not to prevent, not to lock the site off so no one can get onto it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of fencing, but not, I wouldn't call it security fencing. It's designed to control where people walk.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
so when you have your maintenance equipment there, you're going to, how are you going to, as a gentleman question, which is totally up to yourself, obvious, because it's your equipment, how are you going to try to maintain that to keep it secure?
That would be the general contractor's
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know those things are expensive, and obviously, they're going to try to protect the investment the best they can. Right. And that's not one of our criteria that we can consider, unfortunately.
Well, during construction, there'll be a construction fence around the entire
Like
construction.
they usually do with the trailer and the...
Yeah, yeah, so that, the construction area during construction will be completely fenced
So they try to
off.
secure it themselves for security reasons,
yeah.
because they don't want to lose any of their projects, any of their products that are on site that could be stolen.
Right.
'Cause you know-
Contract a laydown area, and then the other area with the fence would be where the teachers would park.
And I know a lot of times on the site, that's why they try to store their materials that they're constructing on site, and they try to keep them in the fenced area for safety. Right. So it doesn't attract kids to play on and the like. Right. Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you. Any of the board members have any further questions? Just go ahead,
Mr.
Steve.
Chairman, I just want to point out that that fence around the park sounds like a good start to protecting that park, right? But that's why you need to stay involved and make sure that the Parks Department puts that in the plan when the park gets rebuilt, right?
Any other board members, any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion. Totally up to the city council, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure I have all my numbers straight. Now, from Wilder Street or from Maury Street, it's 25 feet setback before the building begins, is that what I'm understanding? Is that from the end of the sidewalk or from the street itself?
That's by our city code and our zoning ordinance, sir. It's in our zoning ordinance
So
by the
it's
city code.
25 feet?
Yep, yep. You can check
And,
that right now on our zoning ordinance, that's, a copy's on, at City Hall, yep.
And on the 493 Wilder Street, which is actually what I'm concerned about, obviously, it's, you said 10 feet from the property line?
He said he wasn't sure, and I indicated, oh, he's saying he's 10 feet from property, right, I'm sorry. Right, so you're 10 feet from the property, right. Okay. Okay.
And that fence was 2 feet away, you said, from where?
What he said was that the fence is 2 feet within his property line. So he can build a fence on his property within 2 feet, but the school department can't, yeah. Like anybody else can do on their own property.
So for the last 4 years, when I called the school department, the school itself, to cut down the trees that were hitting our windows, and they said that wasn't their land, that didn't matter?
Inside the fence?
No, actually growing through the fence.
Going through the fence? Well,
And
if
I've
it wasn't-
called, and they said that wasn't their
Well,
land.
then if it's not the school department's concerned, then it's Department, DPW, Department of Works then. They're the ones you have to call the...
They're the owners of the school.
Department of Public Works would cut them down, right. There'd be some city entity that would be responsible for one way or another, yeah. So Department of Public Works could cut them down, correct. If they're on city land, they're maintained by the Department of Public Works here in the city of Lowell.
You could have told me that 4 years ago.
Well,
I got one last question, please. I know you got nice landscaping on the other side, on our side on Moore Street. They've already taken down 3 big trees. We have no, is there any plans for any landscaping this side, so we have something nice to look at? On
I
the
think
Moore
only-
Street side?
That would be in the bottom of your chart.
Yeah. Can we have some trees or something to, so we could have some kind of showing from the school?
okay.
So you have plans for shrubs along Maury Street? Okay. And you seem to indicate that it might be possible to move that dumpster and service entrance up into that parking lot just to the left of the,
Somewhere.
potentially off the street? So if you did that, you could potentially run shrubbery all along the length of the school there. Right. That could potentially go on this side of the... Right, right.
You had the dumpster over here, and you had shrubbery here, you could then have a screen path that would get into that, this whole
Right,
side of the
right.
screen.
I think that would be a better approach. That would get the service entrance and the dumpster off of Maury Street. It would be set 25 feet back off the street and a line of shrubs along the school. I think that'd be pretty attractive.
That would be better.
Any other question by the board members? Yes. At this point in time, I'll entertain a motion from the board. Okay. Go ahead. if you want.
I just have a question about the process that we use to request an independent in-house DPD traffic study or opinion. Is there something formal we need to do to have that done?
There's been one done already. We have a copy of it in our package.
And it addresses the one-way issue?
Nope. What it does, the only question that the city traffic engineer has approved the site the way it's laid out in front of us now. The only recommendation they had is that they felt that instead of having 2 handicap spots, that there should be a 3rd handicap spot required. So they approved the project the way it's set up now with just by adding the 3rd handicap site. This was a copy that was given to us and was dated 4/2/07 by the city traffic engineer. So that it has been an internal review by the city department in regards to the city for the traffic.
But no determination as to whether it will remain one-way?
If I may expand
Sure.
on that,
Go
Mr.
ahead, James.
Chairman. With regards to street traffic flow, most requests that, and the process by which we handle requests of looking at traffic flow or parking or what have you on public right-of-ways or public streets usually comes through a motion from the city council. So if you would like to discuss that, you're welcome to give your city councilor a call. They would have to bring it up at a city council meeting, which would then be referred to the planning department. That's the typical process by which if you'd like to discuss the traffic flow of your street, that's how you would handle that.
Okay. But there is a process in place right now. So do I still need to go to the city council? I mean, it is one way right now during school hours.
Right. If you want to keep it the way it is, then just don't. It's the way it is. It's
Okay,
not going to. It's not going to change.
There is no plan to make it two-way
Not
within this.
Not that we're aware of, and not that has been presented tonight that I'm seeing anyway.
Okay.
If as part of this plan later on, the school department or the city council wishes to study that, they can make their own motion to have the DPD look at that. In most cases, when that happens, a typical process would be that the DPD transportation engineer would do a survey of the street, likely do traffic counts. It typically includes a survey of residents along that street as well. And then it goes back to the council for a formal vote. It's not something that we can make an administrative approval internally, is what I'm saying. It ultimately comes from and is voted on by the city council.
Okay. So would the process start prior to the construction of the school, while the school was being constructed, or when the school was complete?
It could be any part of that. It's ultimately up to a city council, or if the city council or a city councilor would like to start that process beforehand, they can make a motion at a city council meeting to say, basically make a motion to refer it to the Division of Planning and Development to study the one-way traffic pattern along whatever street. This can happen throughout the city as well. It could be after this project is completed. Maybe there's some side effects to this project that were unforeseen, and therefore city council would like to discuss it at that time. So ultimately, it could happen throughout any part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Chairman, just
Yes, sir.
on that
Mr.
point.
Wait a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Just on that point, for the lady who was talking about the one-way here, that would have to be a public hearing before the city council to change that from a one-way to a two-way street. So it might behoove you to contact the city councilor and let them know your feelings about the one-way traffic, and keep an eye on that issue. But you would have the opportunity to speak on it in a public setting if they were trying to change it from a one-way to two-way. I can't imagine that would happen, frankly. I can't imagine that would change. As a matter of fact, I think the overall traffic situation is probably going to improve in the new situation because we're getting the buses off of the street, right, into this drop-off loop. So, the only way that one way would change is through a city council public hearing, and I can't imagine it happen. But if it should, you should be apprised of that.
I would just like to clarify on that one way, sir. It's one way only during school hours,
Right.
7 to 3, so it's two-way all other times.
So what it is, the way it's before us now, it maintains the way it is unless the council files a petition, adopts that petition by majority vote of the council if they change it. So when it's before us tonight, what we can only consider is what the traffic flow pattern is there now. We cannot speculate to what it may be in the future. Yes, sir. Whatever the sidewalks are there now, that's the way it's going to stay. Correct? You're not adding another sidewalk, right?
On Moore Street.
Okay. Maury, I know it's wide open. On Maury Street, it's wide open with all that. area is maintained. You're not gonna add a sidewalk there, are you?
There will be sidewalks on the school side of the street, all the way around the street.
Okay, all right. So you will be adding sidewalks on part of the Maury then, right?
Right.
Going
so-
down the street on the left?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
Because
there'll
in
be-
Wilder, you already have them.
But
Right.
we're,
You have them on Pine.
because of the change in grading and so forth, we're providing all really new sidewalks.
New
around
sidewalks,
the
okay.
entire site.
Right. Because existing now, you have them on Pine and Wilder, and Maury on the left going down, you don't have them at all, 'cause that's all that wide open space where everybody parks.
Right.
And then you go to
Right.
the park itself.
Right.
Right.
Will the sidewalk on the resident side be done? Because I was never done when they redid the...
That's totally up to the city council.
Well, it looked like crap if you didn't put new sidewalks.
Yeah, but see, what happens is, we can't make them do off-site repairs.
How come they did every other street in the entire neighborhood?
I don't know.
Left Laurie like a...
I don't know.
It's a separate, just under the school.
Right, so that doesn't come before us. Okay. But basically, we have no control of the sidewalks. What we do is, only thing we have is what's on his site, on their site, I should say. So what they do off-site, it's up to the city. I have no idea. As we know now, when we look at a site, it's just what's there now, as it exists. We can't speculate what they might do in the future. Because actually, the city never calls and tells us what they're gonna do in the future. Like myself, if I want a sidewalk or street down on my road, I get on the list like everybody else does.
You got a massive big pothole.
I understand, yeah, I understand. This time of year, there's a lot of them in the city, so, but, okay. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to the board to
I
make
have one last question.
Yep.
We've tried to sell a house twice in the last 3 years, and we haven't been able to sell it. What is this going to do with the property values of the single-family houses on that street?
I have no idea, ma'am. That's not one of the considerations that we can consider under our site plan review.
But if it's going to demote our property, sir,
Right.
then we're going to fight this.
Okay.
Won't we?
Right. That's fine. I mean, that's not, we have certain criteria under our site plan review, and property evaluation is not one of them. Okay. So at this point in time, what's the recommendation of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve this project with certain conditions. One is that they get the required variances for the curb cuts. Two, that they address the engineer's concerns on his memo of March 28th, 2007. Third, that they attempt to move the dumpster away from Maury Street, if possible, to the left side of that building, as we've discussed, to get it away from the street as much as possible and to properly screen it. And fourth, in the event that there is any modification of these plans, I think the plans are fairly set as they are, but in the event there was any modification of the plans, that they be brought back to us for review.
Is there a motion made on the floor? Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Jenman. Any discussion?
Point of discussion I have.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Regarding the dumpster, yeah. Can we just get the words service entrance into there somewhere? So that we get the service entrance off the street as well? So you can combine that into one area.
So we attempt to move the dumpster and the service entrance.
Right.
Okay, so as
away
amended?
to the left side of the building, if possible.
Mr. Jenman, you had a discussion?
Yeah, I actually thought it would be good if we could add that the developer keeps a conversation going with the neighborhood, regular meetings with the neighborhood to apprise them of the situation and any changes in plans,
Okay.
as you have already planned, but I just thought it would be good if we could make that officially part of the motion.
You want to encompass that as your motion as amended? Okay. That's part of the motion as amended. Any other further discussion by board members? Okay. Those motions made with certain conditions. Anybody want, second, the motion has been second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. James, you have any questions on what the conditions were?
No, I believe I got them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so therefore that project carries. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Thank you very much for coming down. We appreciate your input. Moving along with the agenda, we have pre-application statuses. The next matter is a pre-application. The following individuals have requested the planning board to provide a preliminary review for their proposed project at the address listed below. These are not public hearings. Each project will require a public hearing as noted. The first matter for the pre-application review is project address at 520 Fletcher Street. Applicant Merrimack River Valley House. Project is 16,458 square foot addition to the existing elderly care facility. The zoning is traditional neighborhood, multifamily, and it requires a site plan review. May we hear the case for the applicant, please? Sure, take your time. Just as he's setting up to let the board members know, we do have another matter on tonight, that pre-application screening, which is 1519 Middlesex Street. James, could you address that, why they're just setting up on this new one?
This, yes.
Which is the other matter, 1519 Middlesex Street, which was an application in a regional retail zone.
Correct. That application, upon further review by the applicant, by DPD, and by the building department, our new building commissioner gave us the word as well as the applicant. It was actually determined that that project does not require site plan review under our current zoning ordinance, or even under our previous zoning ordinance, because there was a minor change to the site plan review threshold. And in both cases, it does not and will not require site plan review by the board. So therefore, they have, obviously, they don't need to go in front of the board, so they've withdrawn their pre-application.
So just let the board members know the matter on 1519 Middlesex Street has been withdrawn. It doesn't meet our criteria, so we won't be hearing that proposal tonight. Okay. Now, then we'll go back to 520 Fletcher when the applicant's prepared. Go ahead. I think so.
The green light on?
That means you got to slow down.
No, it's not working.
Battery's dying.
Do you want these projects?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Foley from Belanger & Foley Incorporated, here tonight representing River Valley House. Again, this is a pre-application meeting with the planning board. And what we want to propose tonight is an addition to the existing River Valley House, which is a home for elderly women at this particular point in time. Is everybody familiar with the location of the property? Okay, I won't waste your time with that. Currently, there are 28 residents in the existing facility, which is located on the south side of the property. As you come into this piece of property, there are two driveways, an entrance here, an exit here, with parking down below. Due to demand, actually, with the aging population, the facility wants to expand. There's a huge demand for this. So what we're looking to do is to get 20 more beds in this facility. We've been working with them for a while, and also working with other consultants that do this specific type of a project, because we do have to go to the Department of Public Health to get a certificate of need. So there's another approval process that we have to go through as well, which is equal to, or probably even more tougher than this process. What we propose to do is kind of mirror image the existing building as much as possible. This is a 3-story building that's approximately 17,000 square feet. The building as it stands right now, and again, this is a work in progress, this is a preliminary design, is 18,111 square feet, 3 stories. That's not the footprint, that's the gross floor area. And what it would do is it would encroach into the existing parking lot a little bit. This is an institutional use, and we would be meeting the parking requirements under the zoning bylaw. We would also be meeting all the offset requirements relative to the parking and the building. The only question mark we have really is the height of the building. In this zoning district, it's 32 feet. We would not be exceeding the height of the existing building, so it's a question that we have to ask the building inspector when we get to that point. Other than that, I don't want to waste too much of your time. I think it's pretty straightforward. What I just gave you is an updated version of what the building is going to look like. Again, although it might not show you on that particular, this is a massing model more than anything else. What we propose to do is to match the existing building. This building is not in the historic district, however, it is a very nice old building. And what we want to do is reflect the same vocabulary of finishes from the existing building to the proposed, so this will be a brick finish. The way the building works is you come into the corner here, after you come around the building, come into the corner here, and they have all the main multi-purpose room here, nurses' stations, some activity rooms off to the side, elevators to get up and down, and we have to connect this through to the existing building at the same time while we make some upgrades to this building, because we want to get some parity between the two sides. We don't want to have, old versus new. Again, if you look at the site plan, you'll see that there's an appendage on the south side of the building right here. This is an elevator shaft. So what we're also proposing as part of this proposal is to modify this entrance now slightly. It needs work. And we want to put a handicap ramp over here so that handicapped people can enter the building at two different locations. We come in here with 2 drop-offs or 2 parking spots and get them in this way, or they can come around the building, a drop-off here or a parking spot, and into the building this way. We're proposing a small courtyard out here that has a southerly or a southwesterly exposure. There'll be a covered atrium in here where people can sit outside and enjoy the sun, and a garden that has, it'll be enclosed. We haven't quite figured out how to enclose it yet, but we do have to be concerned about people wandering away. That's just one of the design criteria. So in a nutshell, I think I've hit all the high points. Obviously, we're going to landscape around the edges. The dumpster right now is at this location right here. We're going to be moving it about maybe 10 to 15 feet from where it is now. Keep one-way traffic with angle parking. And that's the project in a nutshell. If you have any questions specific to, the function of the facility, one of the Board of Trustees members is here, Mr. Norm McClune. He can answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the board members?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Lockhart.
Regarding, have you looked into the history of the building and all, and are you working with it, or anticipate to work with the historic board? It's really a beautiful old building if you look at it, and I think it's worthy of some attention.
No question. It's over 100 years old. We know that. Yeah. And it's been added on to, actually. This about half of this appendage right here was added on. I don't know what the year was. Maybe Norm could answer. But you can see a change in the brick back there.
1890s, I think. Yeah.
Oh, right. So it's a 125-year-old building. And yeah, we're aware of being sensitive to the architecture of the building. Okay. Actually, my partner is Phil Belanger, who is, I have to get this correct because I always get it wrong. Historic board? Oh, there are 2 boards, historic board.
Board and commission, right?
Yeah, commission, yeah. I'm not sure which one it is. He always corrects me because I always get the wrong one.
Mr. Lockhart's on the historic board, so he'll know if he's a member.
Okay. No, he's not on that board, so he's on the other one.
He's on the other one.
Okay.
Because as the planning board, we have to have 1 member on the historic board.
Well, I hope you guys are talking. Yeah, so it's a challenge, no question, because one of the things we have to look at specifically on this project is the windows. And,
right.
We've got...
Those details, yeah.
DPH, the Department of Public Health, has very specific requirements, for heating and cooling in a facility like this, because they want it to be warmer, and there are things we need to do to address both the existing and proposed. So it's very it's a challenge, to try to get something that can be period and architecturally correct, but also meet the code requirements that we have to put up with. So, yeah, again, this is just a massing model. I had to show you kind of what it might look like, but certainly it's not going to be a stucco building or anything like that.
Thank you. Steve?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just had a question about the parking situation. Looks like you're losing 7 or 8 parking spots here with the addition, yet you're adding onto the building. Do you anticipate any issues with that? I understand you meet the parking zoning laws, but Is parking been a problem at the building at all?
Well, none of the residents drive. And the reason that it ends up being a reduction is because several years ago, they did not own half of this property. They acquired this under a separate purchase. And when they did that, they said, geez, it would be nice to have more parking than what we have. And at the time, all they had was this row of parking in the back. So they added on parking, which they really don't need. So they've got several employees. There'll still be a row of parking in the back here, which still exists. And we'll be picking up two handicaps on the side. And then over here, if you go by the site on any given day of the week, if you see one car in that parking lot, you're seeing a lot. So again, it comes down to need.
How many employees are there?
There are some part-time employees that show up for meals, primarily, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Norm, but I think there are probably any point in time between 10 and 15 people given during the day.
And how many parking spaces do you have?
Proposed?
Proposed.
Proposed parking is 21 spaces.
Okay. And James, on a facility like this, what is the zoning code for parking? How many residents in the building?
Well, actually, what it says is we're required to have one space per 3 beds. That's the only, and it doesn't say anything about employees in the zoning code. So that would be 16 spaces.
So you have.
And we have 21.
I see. Okay.
So the total, because the total number, you see, the total number would be 48 beds.
So you have 48 beds?
Yeah, with the new addition.
And potentially 10 to 15 employees?
Right.
And how many parking spaces did you say, 21?
21.
Seems a little bit, I know it meets the code, seems a little bit
sparse.
If there's a way you can find to get a few more parking spots in there,
I agree.
That would be helpful.
But the peculiar thing about this site, again, is that, the largest contingency there are the residents, and none of them have a vehicle.
Sure, but I'm sure there are visitors and employees, and I mean, your employees are going to take, at the height of it, will take up the majority of your spots right there. So, I don't know if there's a way you can reconfigure something to get some more parking in there. That would certainly. You're here for our feedback.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
that's my feedback.
One
looks
thing
like
I
a
didn't
good project, but I would say that parking looks a little sparse.
One thing I did not mention, Mr. Chairman, if I could, is deliveries at this site will be coming in this way, and there's a kind of an area that's sort of defined as a delivery area. It still requires some work to get in there, but this would allow a small truck to come in, back up, drop off their goods, and then just get back out. So that's why there's no parking in this area right here.
Yes, Jerry? Mr. Foley. I'm somewhat familiar with the site and the entrance here. I'm glad to see you're taking a portion of that garage down, because that's a tight turn in there.
Is.
The 2 parking spaces that you're showing, is that meant to be just drop-off parking and?
Primarily drop-off parking for people that need to have a handicap entrance.
Right.
Well, what we were trying to prevent was, this might not look like a long walk for you and I perhaps, but we wanted to have the handicap people or people on wheelchairs 2 locations to get in the building, to get to the elevator either here or the new elevator that would be over here. So rather than have them park here and traipse all the way to their room over on this side, they could be dropped off here by whoever it is dropping them off, get them in this side of the building and up to their room.
I know, and there's obviously not going to be a lot of traffic here, but I am concerned about safety of drop-off here. This is narrow, pulling into here.
Yeah, it is. And again, what we try to do is we try to keep the 3 feet to the property line.
Right.
With this edge. And then we could certainly take another look at this proposed. There are 2 things that kind of crimp style there. One is the existing elevator, which sticks out of the end of the building, and the other one is the proposed handicap drop-off. And what we were trying to avoid with this design is trying to throw some appendage on this building that didn't fit or was going to be out in front and very visible from Fletcher Street. So, and we do have some ground to make up there. This is an old, the first floor elevation's got to be, almost 5 feet above grade. So we have quite a bit of ramp to get in there.
And to the back part of this, the kitchen is back here, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So you.
Kitchen's back here.
Yeah.
and there's a set of stairs going up to a porch. And then there's
Right,
a,
when
then
you
there's,
come out.
then there's a very long ramp currently right here to get into the door at the end of the building.
Because I can tell you, I participated in events around Christmas time here over the years, and volunteers, and it's tight.
Yeah.
It's tight back here.
You're
very
right.
tight. And how wide, because I noticed the lines for this temporary parking exceed, looks like it goes beyond where the handicap parking, so conceivably, I'm assuming that the width of that is indicating that if a car pulls in there, it's actually going to be out into the roadway, the driveway, is that correct?
No, we've got the minimum width of the parking space. Then this hatched area, is this the area you're talking about?
Yes, in there.
Okay, so, you know, the road is here, and then we've got a 9-foot width here.
Okay.
From car to parallel park.
Okay.
And with a flush sidewalk, so that somebody could go around to the other side,
Okay.
get the handicapped person out, put them in their wheelchair, and then get them down the sidewalk to the ramp.
It's a great project. I'm just, boy, I'm real concerned about that spot right there. I'm pleased to see the dumpsters, or the dumpster location here.
That makes more sense.
It makes more sense. It's a good example of where we prefer to see it, so. No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Rich, any questions, concerns?
No, that was the only thing no, I don't have any
Okay,
others.
Joe?
Just a couple of questions. The residents here, you mentioned elderly women, and they don't drive, but are they transported different places? Are they able to leave, and do they go with family members? Is that a lot of comings and goings, that type of thing?
No one can answer that.
Sure.
Think.
Can you cut the microphone so we can hear you, please, if you don't mind, sir? Thank you very much. Sometimes people watching at home can't pick up what you're saying.
As Jerry had mentioned, none of the residents have vehicles. The average age of our group there is about 85, 86, so they're generally beyond independent driving and so forth. In fact, we have warned a guard in the building to keep track on who's coming in and out of the doors and so forth, and have had good luck. In regard to people coming in and out, quite often a family member might come by and either join us for lunch at the dining area or at the home, or they may be picked up and taken out shopping or to the doctor or whatever, but it's seldom that you see any more than possibly 2 or 3 during the daytime coming in or going out. It's not that never been a problem. In fact, from time to time we have someone by ambulance has to be picked up or whatever, and access is very easy to manage that way. So it looks awful small around the building when you look at it for the first time, but all I can tell you is that it works. We've never had any difficulty with access, so people coming and going or whatever. And the other thing that may help with parking, you talk about employees, you have to at least keep in mind that this is a 7/24 type deal, 365 days of the year. So we have 2 or 3 people there in the evening hours, and somewhat more than that during the daytime hours, but there's very seldom a conglomeration of all employees.
Right. What's the maximum number of employees at any one time, your busiest time, say mealtime or?
Oh, for employees, there might be in the area of 12, 14, something like that. That would be pretty near max to see together at one time.
Yeah. If a resident is being picked up or dropped off at this entryway, can another vehicle get in at that time? Another vehicle can get by to get to the parking area?
Yes, yeah, there's enough room for a car to get by there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It is a very nice building. I was up there looking at it the other day, and it's very nice. You can tell it has a nice historic value to it. I mean, it looks, doesn't look, you can tell it's not brand new. One of the things I noticed the most was fire escapes on the front of the building.
Yeah.
Because you don't see those too often. Usually they're in the back of them, but when I saw them, I'm sitting there, I go, wow, you don't see that too often.
Right.
And would you do that to the new building, or would you put them on the back? I'm just curious. I mean, they look nice. I'm not complaining about them, but I did caught my eye that they have them on every level, which was very nice for safety reasons, but you just don't see that architect anymore today.
No, it's not going to be part of the new building.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks nice. I mean, I know you try to usually make it existing to what it looks like now, but I know that'd be difficult to do.
Yeah, it's always a conundrum. You know, there's some people that like fire escapes on buildings, and there are others that just hate them. And
I mean, they don't detract at all from this building at all. When I sat there and looked at it, I kept looking at it. I said, it looks nice. I mean,
Yeah, it does.
and it was, like I said, on every story there.
well, like the building on Bridge Street that they recently restored maybe several years ago, and they had a fire escape along Bridge Street there.
401 Bridge.
Yeah, they left
Big yellow.
they left the rails on, but they took the floor off.
Yeah, right.
So by looking at this site, obviously, where it is now, it's going to be to the right. If you look at,
Yes,
if
if
you
you
stand on
look-
Francis
that's-
Street, look at the building.
That's correct.
Because to the right is where that open space is now. You have plenty of room there now.
Yes.
And then go over to the right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice building. I think, you know, as long as you can get the traffic way in and out, no problem.
The other thing I didn't mention is that this is going to give them an opportunity to also make this male and female facility.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I do believe there is a need for these types of facilities in our city. There's no doubt about that. We don't have enough of them. This one, I think, like I said, looks nice, and as long as you can get the traffic in and out of there, I really have no concerns with it. I think it'll be a nice project. And I think the building it really does look nice. And I think any addition you can do to add, as Jerry said there to the left, open that up a little bit there so it's not as tight to the far side, which I did notice when I sat there and watched for a little while. I think that'd be an improvement.
Okay.
But I think it'll be a nice project. As long as you know, get the traffic in and out, no problem. I know that there isn't a lot of traffic coming and going, but obviously for a safety feature, that's one of the things we always look at. So, any other questions from board members?
I have none.
Okay. Well, hopefully you hear our concerns, and hopefully we'll see you back.
Yeah.
Great.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. The next matter on the agenda we have under old business is an update and administrative adjustment on 1317 Middlesex Street. The board will discuss a proposed minor change to the approval set forth by the board for the project located at the above address. This project was approved by the board in October 2005. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, before we begin, I'm going to recuse myself from this deliberation and hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claremont. Okay. Yes, sir, could you go ahead, please? Just identify yourself to us, if you would.
Hi, Ed and Eileen, with the new business is 1317 Middlesex Street, and I met with James Erickson, who's very helpful, as you can see on the notes here. I also was referred to Bob Camacho, the building department, about determination of these doors that are going on these self-bays. And as you can see, it's pretty well written out there how we want to bring these doors to an end, because it's like more or less it's a safety factor. It's a safety factor between myself, my wife, and our employees going there at 1 o'clock in the morning to shut doors down from 1 to 6. We're proposing to move the hours of operation to shut them down a little more towards the 10, 11 o'clock range, and with lighting, infrared cameras, 24-hour surveillance. We met with Bob Camacho, the building commissioner, which he said the doors are not necessary for, there's many reasons, to eliminate possibility of the doors coming down on people or cars. It'd be a self-automated door if there were doors to go in. What else would there out there? Late night closing of the doors for safety. We met with Officer William Finn, who came through Saturday night and gave us a little safety walkthrough. And he pointed out a lot of things that I could go on for quite a while. It's like if I was to send her at 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't think I'd want to do that. But like I say, we have put the infrared cameras in for 24-hour surveillance. It also has the low-energy lighting with high-efficiency lighting that adds to the safety of the property. And we are going to move the hours from 1 to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. on those self-bays only. The self-automated is a 24/7, and the back building is also a 24/7 service building. And that's about all I have to say,
Okay,
gentlemen.
so this is the car wash that came before us before on, which is right there on Middlesex Street across from the, if anybody's concerned, the Bain Pest Control.
Yes.
Right, so I remember we did approve the project. I think there was one or two questions by one or two of the board members at the time, and about the hours of operation and type of security. We did talk about whether you were gonna have security up there or whether you're gonna have cameras on site. So basically, you indicate you're gonna have cameras on site. One of the questions at the time was, I believe one of the approvals, as you said, that we were gonna put security doors, that was for the south bay only, right?
For the south bays.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And so, and that was a motion that was made by this board, and also that the closing time would be from 1 to 6. So what you requested now is that instead of having it from 1 to 6, you're gonna cut the time back to 11 p.m. instead of 1 a.m. in the morning, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so now you're requesting that we do not keep the doors open, and that is a result of you meeting with the building commissioner, Mr. Camacho, and his concerns were that you're better off
Correct.
not to put the doors on there?
No doors, so you can be able to see and everything. You can see the whole property through these camera systems, through a portable laptop, wherever you are, or...
So he
at
has some
home.
safety concerns with the doors?
Yeah, bring it, they can shut them down anytime they want them. That's the concern he has, you know?
So you mean individual
Between-
people
Well,
could
that
go-
was Officer Finn too's problem, that somebody could go in there anytime with a car and do whatever they want to do in there if the, you
And they
know.
could close the doors themselves?
Yeah.
Oh,
These doors have to be specially made. That's another reason why the cost is just through the roof. There's booms on top that swing around, so they have to be a certain type-made door. And then they can't promise that these doors are not going to come down on a car or a person when that allotted time to shut down is.
Okay.
And,
So this is one of the concerns that Mr. Camacho had when you spoke with him?
right.
And one of the concerns Mr. Flynn had too when you spoke to the police
Would be
department?
safety, would be a safety reason for Officer Finn would be going in there at 1 o'clock in the morning and physically shutting the doors down, where you're out late, you're in a
Personal safety.
Yeah,
personal safety.
So setting up there at 1 o'clock at night, trying to come bring the doors down? So what you're here for is a minor modification of the plan that we've already approved, correct?
Right.
Please.
Okay. I remember this project when it came before us.
Oh,
Yeah. I know we had some discussion on it, but I know basically the board was in favor of it, so now it's a modification, okay? Just to make that clear. Any of the board members have any questions?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. So if I can understand it,
Yes.
initially, the doors were suggested as a security feature, right?
Correct.
But
To
now-
keep people, yeah.
From getting in.
Yeah.
But now, because you have this camera system that you're going to use, you
Right.
figure you don't need the doors, and the doors are kind of a hassle anyways, because people can close them, and that would be
they can do
a
whatever.
problem, and they might fall down on somebody, and they're an expense. So that's why you're requesting this change?
Correct.
Okay.
Jerry, any questions, concerns? No? Mitch, I remember you were on the board when this came forward. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, no, I have none. I think it's pretty clear what we're
Yeah,
looking at here.
I was up there the other day, and I looked at it on Monday, because I know we had some other things on our agenda for Middlesex Street, so I happened to go by it. It looks nice. You're doing a good job up
Thank
there.
you.
It does look
Um, You had a couple of trucks on site there working on it, and it really looks nice. You plan on opening soon, or how soon would you be able to?
Tomorrow afternoon, we're doing test runs, so bring anybody you know coming through. Anybody. Seriously, I'm trying to find dirty cars tomorrow. And Saturday, hopefully, we'll work the bugs out. There's certain things with chemicals and lasers and to work everything out. So.
Now, I know when you were here before, and I remember that we commended you for, because you're right next to, for the city, where they have all their trucks.
Yes.
And you indicated that you're going to have an agreement with them.
There's going to be a truck bay wash, that's on the future building in the
Right.
back. Fortunately, the funds have come to, we got to stop where we are and
Yep.
go forward from here.
I know
But
before
that building
you
will start in July.
I know before you said you're going to try to work out an agreement with the city so they could wash their trucks there for.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the things I remember that stuck out in my mind the most, is how the DPW was right next to you, and how you're sitting there, and how you're going to be able to do their trucks, because a lot of the other car washes don't have the capability to do the trucks because they're not
It
big enough.
depends how far the EPA pushes things,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
question for the board? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'll move that we approve the minor change requested to the permit provided by the planning board.
Motion's been made. Anybody want to second that
Second,
motion?
I'll second
Motion
it.
made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. Therefore, the board approves 4 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention. Good luck with your car wash.
Thank you, John.
Wish you well.
Good luck, Eddie.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Are we off the air now?
Nope, we still got some more things on the agenda.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, good luck. Moving along, we have notices from abutting towns. We, in our package, we have some notices from other areas. Any questions or concerns with any of those notices? No, we'll make a motion. Anybody want,
Make a motion to place on file?
Second.
General correspondences, we do have one thing in our packet that, as a result of our last planning board meeting,
Oh, yeah, the zoning.
Mr. Erickson prepared I'll call them memorandum to the city council, how we voted in favor of the zoning change for the Western Avenue for the Artist Overlay District. I know by what was in the paper yesterday and watching the council meeting the other night, that they have scheduled this for a public hearing. I believe it was May 8th. James, you remember? I'm pretty sure that's what I heard and I read, but...
Unfortunately, I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
That sounds right, but...
I mean, what I saw, like, they wouldn't put on for May 8th, so if anybody has any concerns on the, for the zoning change, there'll be a public hearing before the Lowell City Council on May 8th is what I've been informed. So, that's in our correspondence. We'll move on to zoning board of appeals, then after that, I want to just bring up one other matter under general correspondence, would be a couple of, comments I want to make about our minutes. So basically, at this point in time, we'll move on to the zoning board of appeals. They have, this is notices that are hereby given that the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeal will hold a public meeting on April 23rd, 2007 at 6:30. It'll be held here in the City Council chambers. The matters that are before us tonight, to make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals. The first matter is a special permit application, Tanya Smart, for doing business as a grooming business. The property is located at 1275 Pawtucket Boulevard, unit number 7, which is also known as Riverview Plaza. This is a zoning is a suburban mixed use. The petition is to allow the proposed use of a pet grooming salon in accordance with Section 12.48 of the zoning ordinance table of uses, and also to reface the existing illuminated sign that is there now for the same reason. We do have a copy of some of the materials in our packet. So basically, they want to put a dog grooming area up in this Riverview Plaza. There's a couple of letters in the packet as well for some people indicating that they do a good business, and we do have, looks like some clients, and we do have a plan. And also there's a couple of pictures in regards to the Riverview Plaza sign. I believe what they've circled here, if you've been to the site, it says curves. I imagine that's where they want to put the grooming in.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may, as I look at this, these type of smaller plazas, the concern always is the type of business that goes into them, because the parking is somewhat limited and you're on the boulevard, and you know, unless anybody has any strong feelings one way or the other, I think this is perhaps a suitable business for this type of a plaza. I don't suspect there's going to be you know, a lot of clientele there all at once parking. So I certainly don't think it would be detrimental to that area.
Any other comments or concerns by board members?
I would agree. I would just put, if we're going to recommend approval, that there'd be a stipulation that it won't be a place for the boarding of animals, but just for temporary grooming.
Any other questions, concerns? Anybody want to make a motion in regards to that?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend approval of the pet grooming salon with no boarding provisions.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made and second that we vote in favor of that recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. All board members in favor? That recommendation is to go along with that matter. The next matter is a variance. The applicant is Leah McPherson, and is property located at 56 Featherston Ave. This is a suburban, single-family neighborhood, and it is a variance to construct a screened porch with deck lacking sufficient rear yard setback. So basically, she wants to put a deck on the backyard. For the setback in this neighborhood, I believe they need 25 feet. What she is looking to do is go, she would be 13.5 off the back yard. So it looks like it's a screen, 16 by 16 screen porch.
The only comment I would have, Mr. Chairman, is looking at the steers, is how high that's going to be off the ground. I think what will have a bearing on this is what the abutters may feel on this, I think is important.
What is the abutting property?
Yeah, because, you know, I think of a porch, I think of a ground level with a foundation under it, but clearly when you look at the stairs here, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stairs. So it's hard to comment without really having some sort of idea of the height of that and how it affects the butters.
Yeah, without knowing what the abutting property is,
Yeah, basically on
it's difficult, maybe not enough information here.
the property, I went up there the other day because it's not too far from my street. And in the backyard, there is the other neighbor there. I looked at it. They go back and there's a stone wall. And then the other neighbor has a shed right on the property too. But it's like not very high of a wall, but it was stone wall. By looking at it, like I said, I couldn't tell exactly how high the porch was gonna be. I mean, obviously, I think the person who would be affected the most would be the person who abuts the rear yard.
Mr. Chairman, maybe it's better on this, based on the comments of Jerry here, that we take no action on this petition and pending feedback from the abutters.
I have no problem with that. I don't know if anybody else had any questions or concerns. I understand what Jerry's saying. I think, sometimes if we had some testimony in front of us, it'd be easier for us to make a decision without
Absolutely.
knowing exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a reasonable proposal.
Yeah, I mean,
as
it
long
really
as the
depends on the
it's a
abutter.
screen porch, so it's
Yeah,
not a.
I mean, like I said,
but as long as the abutters are okay, so I think,
Yeah.
Those are okay, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, motion at this time would be to take no further action and, without having any feedback in regards to the neighborhood. Is that correct?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion been made by Mr. German, second by Mr. Lockhart. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving along, we have one other matter from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that is, I believe it's in regards to a sign. This is a special permit, McIntyre sign of NMTW, which is 87 Hale Street. This is a commercial high-rise, and this is a petition to reface the existing internally enumerated signage for the Northern Massachusetts Telephone Workers Credit Union in accordance with section 6.3.9.d of the zoning code. This is the matter that's behind the YMCA there on Hale Street. Once you go over the railroad tracks.
Oh, yeah.
It's there now, so they want to change the sign.
I was in that building a couple of weeks ago. They did a real nice job with that. The building itself is beautiful.
I've been by it several times, I've never been in it, so, yeah, I mean, it looks nice from the outside.
We get a nice idea of how big the sign would be because there's a lady standing next to it.
The only question now is how tall is the lady?
That's right.
7'8".
I don't think it's gonna be a detriment, I think,
They did a
Did
nice
we get
job
any
of
feedback on the
building,
sign? No? Okay.
Don't we usually refer sign issues to our sign
Sign.
expert?
I mean, looking at it, I know they have a sign there now, and, I don't know much difference it's gonna look to be negative about it. So I'd have no problem with the sign.
Mr. Chairman, briefly, just to address Mr. Gendron's comments. Yes, our DPD design planner does review all sign proposals. She has been quite busy, and it's also school vacation week this week, so her family vacation, they did it this week. But before it goes to the ZBA, she does try to provide comments to the ZBA, and it's not always within her time to do it for the board, just because we receive these packets roughly the same time you do. I am usually photocopying the day I'm sending the packets to you, so just to get the comments in that short a time is difficult. But she will likely comment before the ZBA.
Yeah, well, knowing this building and the sign they're proposing and the sign they're looking to replace, I'd have no objection to it. So I would recommend approval in this case, subject to review of our sign lady.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. Motion carries 5-0. Recommend approval. That concludes the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendations. Getting back to the matter I had on general correspondence, I spoke with James at length on this and George Parakis at length a bit about our minutes. I know Mr. Jedman brought this up in the past, how basically a lot of our minutes are almost like a transcript. So I suggested possibly if we could maybe reduce some of the minutes down to, instead of be more of a transcript.
Get the main points.
To get the main points in. I know that on our minutes now, as we have copies in front of us tonight, how we put a note at the top, how the minutes are not completed verbatim. For further details, you can receive an audio recordings that are available by the Division of Planning and Development. I think now that we're also televised, I think we can put a note on top of the minutes too, if somebody wants a complete video copy of the proceedings, if they need them for any type of litigation or for their own personal preference to watch, they can always get a copy of those. But I think as long as we can cut down a little bit on some of the length of the minutes, because I know some of our meetings have been going at quite length. I know one of the minutes that they're working on right now was the matter we had the first week in January, when we didn't get out of here till after midnight, when we had 5 public hearings. So when I'm talking to James and George about this, I said, you know, they were preparing some minutes for tonight's meeting. I said, instead of starting on all those, if we can maybe have them condensed. I know a lot of work goes into the preparation for the materials for ourselves by James and George and DPD staff. I know a lot of work goes into these matters from all the planning board members who go visit the sites and read through all this paper to be prepared the best we can before each meeting. So I think the only finality is basically approving the minutes to put each agenda to rest. So I think if we could just highlight the matters and try to make the minutes a little briefer, then we could spend more time on focusing on the other matters coming before us and moving on, instead of just trying to rehash some of the old minutes that are very time consuming, and sometimes when they're a little tardy, they're a little difficult for us to recall exactly what took place. I know the important thing is the vote and also the conditions that we may impose. I know now that James tries to get us a communication to us, usually by email on Wednesday, of what we did on a Monday night. Usually we meet on Monday. Tonight we meet on a Thursday due to the Monday holiday. And I know we can get feedback on those if we have any questions on there. So we do have a brief narrative of what took place within 2 or 3 days after the meeting. So if we have any concerns, we can definitely communicate with James, and he can change those if we feel that he might have missed something, and when he communicates that to the other department heads. I did ask him if he could give us a copy of what the city council minutes may look like, because I know Steve, being a former member, and Steve brought it up earlier, that maybe, you know, if we, that how they were a transcript in nature, and how Steve said, you know, maybe we could cut down on some of these, and therefore DPD could concentrate a lot more on other matters and answer a lot of other questions that we may have. I honestly have never seen city council minutes before, so I guess I'll bring a copy. I know Steve's familiar with them. So that was a suggestion that I made to James and George, and their concerns to me was they had no problem making them shorter, but before they did that, they'd like to hear the input of the other board members. Any suggestions or concerns? One of my concerns, or suggestion was, if you have like 6 people speak on one project, list their names, and you can abbreviate what their concerns were. If it was traffic, water, height of a building, and then just list their concerns instead of doing the verbatim.
Yeah.
And then more, same thing like any statements that either myself or the board members made. My concerns were the traffic, the lighting, the drainage, instead of trying to do verbatim what we said. I think that's kind of difficult, and especially when we have public meetings now that it's been going quite a bit at length. I know it's takes a lot of time consuming. So I indicated that I would bring this up under general correspondence. I don't know if you board members want to have any comments on it now, if they want to digest the matter and think it over, we can bring it forward the next meeting, or but I just want to throw that out there to get your own comments and whatever people feel. I'd be more than happy.
Just as a comment, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. I think now with the availability of the videotapes, sort of makes an attempt at a verbatim transcript sort of moot. So I wouldn't be concerned about spending a lot of the department time doing up the minutes if we can encapsulate them like the city council does. I think that's a great idea. If in the future we need to get some exact verbiage as to what went on, go to the tape. So I think we save a little time and effort for everyone involved, and I would agree that that's the way to go.
And I think, highlighting on that, I remember one time there was a question on what happened at the meeting, and we did go to the tape.
Yep.
I remember, I don't remember the exact project, but I do remember the applicants, and they had a question, and they had a question of what we said and did, and we told them they were available to go meet with DPW to listen to tapes anytime they had, and if they had a question, they come back to us. Well, they didn't come back, so they heard the tape.
Correct, yes, Mr. Chairman. I've actually done that in the past, whereby there's been a question as to what a condition that was set that I wrote up in the decision letter, and the applicant felt that I didn't represent it correctly, and I went back to the video and I actually wrote it word for word as it was stated that night, and so that question was resolved then and there. And I would like to put forth a quick proposal about the minutes. After looking through the city council minutes, this was one of the first times that I've seen city council minutes as well, and then looking through what we do. I propose doing more of a hybrid approach, just because I think the sensitivity to some of the projects that the planning board tends to hear requires a little bit more detail in minutes.
Okay.
Not to say that the city council isn't discussing sensitive things, but I think the planning board discusses more details about plans, for example. So it may be, yes, parking, but it may be a specific detail about parking that I think may need to be in the minutes. So I may do a little bit more detailed approach than the city council minutes.
I think part of that is, James, I think on certain projects, we have to make a specific finding.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
under our criteria, special permit, the neighborhood character, the other criterias, what we have to find, what we don't have to find, and I think those are the things that we really have to focus on. I know we've had detailed reports given to us from your department before, what criteria we have to look at.
Correct.
And it's spelled out in our zoning code. So I know
Yes.
those are certain things that we do have to address on each one of them.
And in producing minutes, if I can expand on that, Mr. Chairman, in producing minutes, I think planning minutes and what we follow with regards to zoning and documenting the public hearings that are held through the planning board and through the ZBA, the statutory regulations, and I think some of what the court cases have said has not required the level of detail that we've been doing, but has required a little bit higher level detail than what some just basic public meetings minutes have been able to do. And in general, when I believe you notice in some of the meetings that we first had with Member Gendron and Member Frechette, with the lack of public hearings, I really try to condense those into just the board unanimously voted to do X. But when it comes to a public hearing, I try to do a little bit more detail. But I can definitely do a hybrid approach and make it much less detailed than we have now,
Sure.
which will save quite a bit of time.
Any board members concerns or questions on that?
No, I'm in favor of any, consolidation we can do
And,
here. I think it's a step in the right
and
direction.
what I've also mentioned to James, and I just gave it to him as an idea and said, you have to comment it. If, I know how he communicates to us now on the email, if he wanted to give us a proposal ahead of time that we could even look over before it comes to us that night, and, the sooner he has it, and then if it's fresh in our mind, we can just email back to him, and all he has to do is just change that comment before he gives his final draft out, so we have a chance to look him over ahead of time. And I mentioned that to James, and I said, this is just a suggestion, I don't know how it works with you, but that way if we can see him before we even vote him on at night, and, while he's preparing him, he can make the minor adjustments. I told you just to think that over. I didn't say you had to respond to my request, but I know if it would be helpful or more detriment to him, that we'd be bothering him all the time. So
I could definitely try to make that part of the process. I don't want to guarantee it because
No,
it may be, in some cases, it may be easier for me just to print it out and then put it in your packet so
Sure.
you have it with the packet. But in some cases and in some of the lengthier meetings, it may be easier for me to email you the document so that you have more time to review it as well.
Like I said, because the feedback we're getting now, a couple of days after the meeting, that's basically what our vote is and what the conditions are, and then, so the minutes would just be elaborated a little bit more with the specific findings that we have to make.
Correct, and some detail in the public hearing section of the minutes for statutory
Yeah,
purposes.
I think, the fact, like the advertisement, you just cut and paste that and put it on, so they know exactly what was before us, because you already have that set up as the agenda, so that portion you can put it right in, to the meeting.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's the easy part, yeah.
So, we can propose those, everybody has any comments, and then if, as we go along, if we see anything that we want to fine tune it or make corrections, I think we can adapt them thereafter.
Sure.
So, anybody else have any questions on those? No? Okay. Having none, I have no further correspondence. Any of the board members have any updates or any correspondence or anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, thank you. We have adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, yeah. These are the advertisements coming up? Yeah. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Look
Rogers
every night.
Street and Bolt Street, yep.
Oh, Old
These are the
Mother
ones we've
Hubbard.
seen on the
This is-
preliminary
This is
plan.
gonna be